course, microphone isn't working. Great. On. Where's the audio settings? Audio.
I,
Nice. Audio microphone is plugged in, but is not playing any. That's great. Cool. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you on Discord. Let me turn on the this over here.
YouTube is apparently not happy, which is great. Wonderful. I can always switch over to that, which is not going to be great. Let me try a different one.
Oh,
I can hear you.
Now I hear you.
Okay,
Now
yeah,
over on
but
YouTube.
it's going to be a.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I wonder if Discord is grabbing the microphone. That would kind of suck.
It's Discord.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can go to my settings. Device. Let's try that. Can you all still hear me?
And now I've lost you on Discord.
Great. Okay. Yep. That's what's going on.
Yeah, me too.
I got Steve still.
Okay. Back to default. Hold on.
Okay. Now you're back.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, my computer decided to boot us. All right. That over to Samson. Samson. And then this. Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you on Discord. I haven't
Yeah.
listened to YouTube.
All right. Discord or YouTube does not appear to be picking that up. I got a default on that. There we go. Okay. YouTube now seems to be hearing me. Okay. And I think you guys are hearing me on Discord. Correct?
Yeah.
Yay! Always
Yeah,
something.
I got both channels going. Okay.
Cool.
Sweet.
Always something, everyone. Cool. All right. So that's there. All right. We can actually get down to it. Hello, all. We're going to talk about quite a movie. This is the first feature-length animated film released in Japan, made in Japan, released in Japan, I should say. Momotaro's Sacred Sailors, also known as Momotaro's Divine Sea Warriors. Not available in the US until I think like 2 years ago when Funimation licensed the thing and released it on Blu-ray in a lovely print. This is released in 1945, and there's a hint as to its content. It is definitely not a... its themes are not subtle. I will put it that way.
No.
Yeah. It's about as subtle as a brick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I wanted to start, is this question of its presentation. Because I think when you start watching it, it's immediately clear where it's going. Because it opens with bucolic Japanese imagery, the Japanese countryside, which is so lovely and full of birds flittering around. And then you see, and I want to know if you guys found the visual character designs effective, having these sort of anthropomorphic characters in like uniforms.
They were creepy, Brent. They were just plain creepy. The pheasant, not so much, but the bear sometimes, the inconsistencies with the animation, its eyes were looking different directions, and then the monkey, just the monkey trying to talk. It's like, I think they did the lip flaps before they had the script. Because there were moments in there where the monkey's mouth is moving, and there's nothing coming out of it. I'm like, oh, this is really creepy.
Yeah, because the monkey and they did the close-ups of the face.
Oh,
yeah.
All the time.
Monkey going, and it's just really weird going, hi. And you're like, no. But and Brent, you're right. It starts in this beautiful. It actually really is for the technology. It was a really well done scene of the nature, and you were
Clouds in the
definitely
background.
Mount
Yeah.
Fuji.
You're definitely supposed to feel, if you were Japanese, this is home, the homeland. This is what we're protecting. This is what we're doing, and you had the characters walk through, the field, and they, as they're walking through it, in their sailor uniforms, which was at first you're like, okay, this is all really kind of cute and all, but then as they go in their separate directions, it all kind of falls apart a little bit, because particularly with the pheasant, because suddenly here you are talking about soldiers dealing with technology, and suddenly the pheasant's like back in the tree, and he's just like, oh, my young ones are hungry, let me give them pickles, and then they just like revert to animalism, and it's like, okay, gotta go. I'm going to spew them out of my mouth, and I gotta go. And it was definitely, but when you saw it though, it was definitely aimed. You can tell, okay, this is definitely aimed at kids and their parents, because they did look cute. That's the thing. Is that at a certain point they did look cute in those things. They're like little cheapy stuff, and you think, oh, okay. And you're misled, by the way, because again, I had thought I'd seen this movie before, but I guess I didn't because of what happens later on. But at first, you think that they're like maybe the chibi characters, cute characters that are support people, like supporting the planes and stuff like that, and not actual soldiers. Wrong.
Yeah. Well, I had read a breakdown of this that said the film fits neatly into a three-act. That Act 1 is and they ran through what happened in Act 1, but you can sort of put a synopsis on it and call it Japan as pure, wholesome, and civic-oriented.
Yep.
Yes.
So that you get this, everybody lives in a village. Everything is this agrarian, rural nature, and of course everything's, within eyesight of Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
Because apparently all of Japan lives right at the base of Mount Fuji.
Correct.
But the thing I find very interesting in that first third is the bucolic nature of it, certainly. But it's also this really bizarre authoritarian concept of back to the land that really is extant for heaven knows what reason, particularly in the 1930s, that, you have European powers that are looking for Lebensraum to the east, and you have Asian powers looking for Lebensraum to the west. So they're converging to the middle, but it's this odd idea of not a high-tech industrialized society. No, you're hearkening back to this, the beauty of this long country road, and off in the distance, there's like 4 buildings.
Right.
Well,
that's my village, versus like, hey, it's Tokyo, this giant metropolitan area, Yokohama boat works, making ships and aircraft and all kinds of heavy industry, that you're instead turning the view away from that to be like, oh, no. It's all about being back to the land, the native soil, blood and earth.
Okay. Okay.
Bluten Erde. Yeah.
Which is also interesting when you think, and Japan had a very robust cinema industry from very early on, but still, you think, where is this going to play? Probably not in the Japanese version of Peoria. It's going to play in Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka and all the big cities. You're not going to have a big movie theater out in Kakurodate. So it's very interesting that it's appealing to folks who are probably not watching the movie that much.
Right. And I mean, arguably, you could have theoretically the propaganda department run out to like a 4-village area and say, we're going to meet at the halfway point from all 4 of your villages, and we're going to put this projector up and a screen in the trees, and we're going to watch this because this is production that you're meant to see.
But you are supposed to see this.
Right. But most of the time, you're 100% correct. These are going to be city dwellers and people who have the ability to get to a cinema and arguably disposable income, because the agrarian lifestyle they're portraying in this, the kids are wearing Dickies. They have no clothing. They got this thing with a little rising sun on their stomach, and they're running around. It's like they don't even have pants on. Here you got these guys who are like, we're military. We've got our uniforms and our insignia on, and everybody else is wearing like, a diaper. What the hell's this?
Well, the interesting thing is that right before the Meiji Restoration, and this is what it made me think of as I was watching the first third, as you were saying, is that a lot of people, they opposed the modernization of Japan.
True.
And that was part of the Meiji Restoration, was saying, no, we have to do this. Well, some of the moderates, like, we talked about this guy, Saito Takamori, who was the head of the Satsuma province. He didn't want modernization for Japan either. Like, he hated trains. Like, he hated the very concept of trains. But he was all for a technologically advanced military. And the idea was, his concept was that, we do have to accept the fact that we're going to have to deal with modern technology, but in terms of protecting this thing. And that's what I got from the first third of the movie, was that, these are humble little building villages, and they're all wearing, diapers. They really did look like diapers, by the way. And it's just kind of running around being very agrarian. There's that whole scene where the village comes together and saves
to save Santa.
To save Santa.
To save Santa. Which I thought was a translation error. I'm like, is it Sunda? Like DA? Or is literally, are they out to save Santa? In which case, that sends a totally different message.
So here you have this beautiful imagery of the motherland, the home, the fatherland, whatever you want to call it, and this idea of the village. Everyone's happy in the village, and they're all sharing, and they're all together. And when something bad happens, the people come together. It doesn't matter if it's your kid, because remember the cat. Is it the cat? I think it was. Leaps and bounds over everyone to save someone who was his relative, but that was part of the village.
Yep.
So, so I got a very strong sense of, okay, we're protecting this of Japan.
Yep. Even
though, as you pointed out, it's really, you have Yokohama Shipworks, you've got Tokyo going on over here, you got all this industry at this point just turning out whatever they can make just to save what they can.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of the interesting things watching them. If you go in knowing it's a propaganda film, it's kind of a hard left turn when you come in and it's immediately just saving the kid in the village who doesn't even look. I mean, the river doesn't look particularly dangerous even. They show the
Except
waterfall
for
eventually.
the oddly placed giant Victoria Falls in the middle of Japan. And mind you, the child, when he got a hold of the hat, was in the river in like 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And yet you have like a full-on 5 minutes of half the village running through the field, where it's like, why don't you guys just like go to where the kid fell in and swim? That's like 2 seconds away from where you just were. Like,
yeah.
Going ahead.
And they were told that by a bird, like an actual bird, not a humanoid bird, which is I don't know.
Well, it's like the pheasant family. The pheasant's in his Navy uniform, and yet the pheasant parent, the other parent, I guess, is a full-on pheasant. There's no clothing. They're not wearing anything. They're just bringing stuff back and forth, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Why are there regular birds in the sky tweetering along and flying around, and yet the pheasant bird is actually in a sailor uniform?
Yeah. Well, and then we transition to the island in Act 2, where we do absolutely see like the animals, squirrels and elephants and rhinoceroses doing work
all together.
And able to talk apparently, and have all the intelligence of everyone else, and sing. Oh, do they sing?
Gleefully. Occupation is fun. Occupation's good for everyone.
This is where I started getting angry at this film.
And it's not hard to see why, because it's like, okay, the natives of this island that they moved to, as they show kind of the transition of here's where we're going to make the airfield, and then they go to the island, and they're all excited. The Japanese are coming to take us over, and isn't this wonderful, and I'm so happy about this. And there's a great lyric in there where they go, and the best thing is that they they look like us, but we kind of don't look like them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You're just like going, oh, oh,
Ain't that fun?
okay. Wow, we're acknowledging our second class citizenship. All right, great.
Well, it's always great when somebody comes into your homeland and makes you a forced laborer. It's just apparently it's the best thing ever.
It's the thing ever.
But that's where in part two, the middle piece is if you want to just put a spin on it, it's Japan as the bringer of culture and the bringer of order.
Yep.
Because when they show up and they're going to lay out this airfield, it's all just jungle. Native people living in a jungle, and that's not orderly, and that's not as it should be. And yet here comes the Japanese. They're going to teach people to speak and read Japanese. They're going to bring order to the island itself and order to the people themselves.
And it's great with that classroom scene.
Yeah.
That classroom scene. Where
AEIOU. Yeah.
they show up, and the poor cat soldier is trying to teach them, and he just wants to take that stick and just start smacking the heck out of them. But they're sitting there, and they're like going, okay, you know what? Guess what? We're too stupid to understand all this, so we're just gonna play around here.
They make noises and scream,
make noise and run around and all this stuff, and then one of his compatriots goes, "Oh, you know what? You have to treat them like they're our children. So since they're our children, since we've come in, we have responsibility and ownership over our children. So we must teach them. What better way to teach the Japanese alphabet to these lettered creatures than by singing a child's song?"
Yep.
Yes. Which then the children watching the movie and the audience can sing along to.
Sing along with, Yep.
And feel like they're part of the movie, and they're part of, educating those poor, illiterate, foreigners. It's creepy. It's really, really creepy.
And then they start going, "Oh, and these people are so wonderful for changing our culture and our illiterate ways. Let's feed them and it's our responsibility to feed them and give them our thing because we're so grateful."
And to that point,
I don't think that happened in Papua New Guinea.
Well, and that also ties into something in Act 1, where, these sailors come back and they start talking to all the kids about, what it's like being a soldier. Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. I get to fly around. It's wonderful.
Boom.
All these
boom, boom, boom. Taka, taka, taka. I'm like,
and,
what the hell's that?
And any of you can learn to do it.
Yeah.
That's right. Hint, hint. Any of you can learn.
Yep. And then they go to the island, and it's definitely not onward towards our noble deaths with malaria and 1 grain of rice per week. It's fruit, and they're giving you all this food, and it's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Melons and bananas. It's just a wonderful life.
And the Navy is so great. The Army is so great. The Air Force is so great. You don't have, like in real life, a sergeant or a corporal that beats the crap out of you every day.
No, they're all really
That was
great.
the thing. They're
when Momotaro shows up as the captain, he's just the greatest guy, and everything's super cool. And it's like, I did find it very uncomfortable that the order to scramble when there's a plane coming in, they're getting ready for everything. It was at that point, it just kind of hit me that everybody's voices are children.
Yes.
They're all
when you
kids.
get into the third act. When we got into the third act, when we get to talking about the third act, that's where I started.
Yeah,
I was getting a little creeped out at this point. But by the time the third act, you're like,
they got a bunch of kids to do this stuff, and it's just like, and all of the sound, which Disney sounds at that time they felt like more ingrained to the actual to the show, to the film, this is like entirely studio.
Well,
like every single noise is like you could see a guy at a sound table going.
And it's it's also interesting because apparently they couldn't mix because you got either dialogue or sound effects or music.
Right.
never any of those all together at the same time, which gives it a really awkward quality.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I love the fact that the birds chirping was like a water whistle, like you'd see in like a vaudeville show. It's like what are you really? When they're running, you can tell it's somebody with like padded something on like a wood floor going, and it's just like, wow, this is terribly, terribly cheap sound effects. Like, but it's during the war, so
Yeah, true.
Yeah, they didn't have YouTube back then where you could curse the the ratio you're getting, because at one point I was like going, what is that blob?
Yeah.
The bear. It's the bear with the weird lazy eye. Okay.
Did you guys notice that when they were having the air crews deplane and they're all sort of lining up, they're getting organized, did you notice the very intentional shot of hundreds of aircrew bags?
Yep.
As if to non-verbally say, look how huge our Air Force is.
Yeah.
There's all these Air Force bags. There's even though we're only seeing like maybe 25 individual characters in any of this given shot, there's hundreds of these bags. Look, the Air Force is huge. Like, nice non-verbal cue. Thank you.
Well, and it's weird because I saw that and I got the distinct image of gravestones.
Ooh.
I don't think it was intentional, but I could not get that out of my head.
Well, hindsight being 2020.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
At the time, I'm sure it was much more forward-looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the image I got was definitely like going, oh, these are the bags they send home after
Body bags, yeah.
But I think it's more along the lines of what you're talking about, which is hey, it's huge. We are unstoppable.
Look how massive our forces are.
Yeah.
We have a whole island full of chibi warriors, monkey warriors. Here you go.
Yeah.
And their planes, which they did a really good job mechanically. Even though a lot of other stuff was kind of goofy, the planes actually, when they got down to some of the nitty gritty of it, they were actually really well done.
Well,
I was like,
that was a requirement. That was one of the things where apparently they were told, no, like you're going to get these right. And also apparently, from what I was reading, they got reference, like they got film to study of planes taking off and planes landing and all this footage shot by the Japanese military. And which was an animator's dream, to actually have something that you can reference and say, okay, this is exactly how it looks and all that. So they were kind of like kids in a candy store in that sense of great, we can actually make something look good in this damn film. Gosh.
We can do more than backgrounds because everything else going on sucks.
Yeah.
So it's just some aircraft.
Although I should say, I should back up on that. Like we were saying, the nature animation is gorgeous. The backgrounds are very well done. The character animation is just, there are times when they walk at you and they just kind of do this. And they just kind of, and their arms are just going all over the place, and it's just, what?
And you're just like going, this is just that code. Right?
This isn't that Betty Boop cartoon I've seen it.
Yeah. It's not squash and stretch done American style.
No.
It's interesting.
But getting back to the whole, our giant army, did you notice this in that scene where they send the plane out on reconnaissance and it comes back all shot up?
Yeah, with one part of the wing missing.
Yes.
Apparently it still flies with only half a wing.
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
And did you notice they came back and they said, we returned, one of our guys died, but the plane got all beat up. And they spent all this time looking at how beat up the plane was. No mention of the guy who died. Just, whatever.
Except for that one little bullet hole in the window.
Yeah, where it's like a really evident, like where somebody's head would be.
Yeah.
Bullseye shot, like, yikes.
But yeah,
but again,
there's your message.
The unspoken is that even entirely wrecked, the fine Japanese aircraft can make it back.
Exactly. Yep. Where our our aircraft are just fantastic. They hold together very well. Don't listen to the press. Not the press is mentioning that, but anyway.
I'm sure the press said exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Yes, it's very true.
Tokyo Shimbun Daily, or whatever, totally agreed with that.
Yeah. And then we interrupt your story for another animated film inserted into the middle of our movie.
Yeah.
And this was another very subtle work.
Yeah.
Rick.
Well, I like the fact that that what they're referencing
evil.
doesn't have, like, the ship they're using is like the Mayflower. And it's like, Commodore Perry showed up in, like, a steam-driven sailing ship. It doesn't look anything like that. And I'm like, huh, interesting.
Actually, what they were actually referencing to
Got to be the
was,
Portuguese.
it was the Portuguese takeover of Papua New Guinea. And
the Dutch
that's
East Indies.
Yeah, it's the Goa. I think the Kingdom of Goa that they were referring to, I think, was Papua New Guinea, and that's what the Dutch. That's what actually the Portuguese did, and they just walked in there because they were not very good people. And that's pretty much how.
Well, when they show that coin, it says 1C. Now, to me, and the symbol on it, it looked like it was 1 crown. Which would be an English reference.
Okay.
It would be a K if it was a kroner.
Okay.
So that's what I was kind of looking at. I'm like,
Well,
I think this might be sort of mixing the message, because if it's England, it would be a 1 crown, 1 sovereign crown, which would blend nicely with the fact that they were fighting the English and the Americans. So,
to be honest, I think they were just saying all white people are, and don't trust them, and
they're pirates apparently.
Yeah.
Pirates, and they're gonna destroy everything that you own. I thought they were, and I thought it was an interesting reference to Dejima, where they go like, we just need one little piece of land, just one little piece of land.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
Take the whole island.
Well, and
according to our commercial law, we now have to take you over. Like, what? I'm not sure how that worked, but
this week I just watched The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which is the oldest surviving feature-length animated film, and 1925, I think, and German, and it's all silhouette, and it's all done exactly the same way, or very similar. I wouldn't say it's similar. It's basically paper cutouts, but fully animated cutouts.
Oh yeah.
And like that was definitely a thing in like the 20s and so forth of this style. And so I wonder if it wasn't also just kind of saying, okay, we need to tell this story, we need a different style, so let's go to this other thing that's still popular, people know what it is, people have seen this somewhere else. Just kind of give it that extra flair. Because it is legitimately impressive, the expressiveness of not only the characters in there, but also of the facial features. Like those are Portuguese people. Like it's just, and it just in a little outline. Like they did an amazing job there.
Well, I thought it was interesting with the natives when they were saying, the natives began to panic and they went and talked to the king. The sort of way that they were moving on that balcony when the foreigner devils are showing up, it almost looked like Thai silhouette puppetry, because they're sort of like doing this kind of weird kind of body movement where it's like it looks like they're hinged in various ways as they run off, and I'm like,
Well, and then when you see the pirates, it almost looks like rotoscoped. It looks like somebody took an MGM film and then just like colored over it or something.
As the guys sort of sauntering up the
and they're like raising the stuff and all that, the ropes. Yeah. So I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what sources they may have had, but it definitely felt like it was a very deliberate artistic choice. But yeah, and then it ends with literally this Star Wars temple in the jungle. With this sign saying, "And the Japanese will save them someday."
Someday.
Like, wow. Brick.
People so far distant from you that really weren't looking for you to show up. You're gonna magically save them thanks to prophecy. Awesome.
Yeah.
And the fifth,
that was not a subtle black ship Commodore Perry moment.
No. And it's weird because And I'd love to find out. It feels like that was a propaganda film that they made separately. Because it doesn't fit into anything else. Yeah. And they just kind of shoved it. And I wonder if, and I'd have to look at the running time, if it was literally like to make it feature length. Like, we produced 48 minutes. Let's insert this other thing that we made so as to, broaden it out to be long enough. I don't know.
So you'd have to find a compendium of what propaganda animation was made during the war to figure out whether
that's gonna be easy.
Was a piece. Yeah. As I say, that'd be because I got to figure this started production in 42, and it premiered in 45. So somewhere in there, would it have been a clip of something that they made in 41 or 40 that they used with the black ship reference, or was it somewhere as they were moving forward they produced that clip on the side and said, let's just dump that in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Good luck trying to figure that out.
I do not know. But then,
Brent, you are the archaeologist.
But this is true. Yes.
You're supposed to know how to figure out this stuff.
Do my research. But yeah, so when we come back from that to
part three.
Part three, yes.
Which is Japan as liberator and preserver of culture and peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about rotoscoping?
Yeah.
They wholly, and I'm pretty damn sure, wholly borrowed those paratrooping moments from German propaganda films.
Wow.
Of Germans paratrooping out of Ju-52s. Because the way they're sort of tumbling out and the way that they're moving, it's like, I don't think that looks really familiar.
You got a point there because they made a whole effort to show beginning to end jumping out of the plane.
Oh, yeah.
They went into detail with the D-ring going into the onto the rail, and then how that moved forward. Like, because there was a whole 10-second segment that I was surprised with, showing it like going forward, going forward.
Oh, and showing the buzzer, and like this sound means get up. This sound means jump. Yeah,
hook up. And that's, the Wochenschau that shows the paratroop, Kurt Student's paratroop invasion of Crete. That there's a lot of stuff like that. The guys are hooking up and they stand at the door and they jump out, just like they're jumping out. I'm like, okay, it would not have been impossible for you to have seen those movies. I mean, that would have been something that would have probably been shipped across to the German consulate and that people would have seen.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and it's fascinating because you've had all this military stuff very much as prep, and you move into combat, and it is it's weird because the movie is just preparation. We're gonna get there, and then you have the battle, and
that's where I just went. Oh no, the Chibis really are killing people.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Because
tanks.
Because again, you're talking about how it's all child's voices that are shouting on for the charge, fire. They're going up against the I guess the British, I think is what they were actually looking at, and it reminded me of I forget what the British fort in Indonesia was that fell to the Japanese earlier in the war, but
Singapore.
Yeah. Was it Singapore? Because there was clearly those three buildings meant something. I forget what it did. But as these chibi kids earlier in the movies, the songs, the singing, the idyllic things and beauty and all this something, and suddenly their faces are hardened, and you see movements of the bayonet, and worse is that you don't see the death.
Yeah,
you hear the
scream on the tank thing. Yeah,
and you hear the scream from inside, and it's not like a Wilhelm scream because it hadn't happened yet, but it was a blood curdling, like I'm being murdered, killed, death in the most horrific way, kind of thing. And then chibis are just like, no more.
Yep.
And they keep going. It's just like, and you're just like, and of course you get the whole concept of child soldiers in your head. You're just like, oh.
And it must be remembered that at the time, by the time the movie came out, the military leadership was talking about how Japan might have to be defended down to the last man, woman, and child. So they could be preparing that generation for that.
Well, I mean, and like their European counterparts, you already had schoolgirls and schoolboys already enlisted into manufacturing processes and any kind of means of farming to get more food, anything to get guys in the field, and those vacancies were filled by kids.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, they get to the actual compound, and thankfully, the British are all morons. And they all just
running around like crazy.
With wavy arms,
playing cards. And I love
that.
Yeah, I love that symbolism that they're just playing these games. They're not really serious. They're just
gambling, shiftless people who are just no good.
Yep.
No good, Nick.
And for some reason that you can't talk right, and they're just. Well, you see, and you're just like, oh my God, spit it out. After a while, and you're just like, but it's to that point. It's just like they're incompetent because Momotaro is out. Fourth White.
You need to turn over control.
We are the victors. You are the losers. Do what we say. Do it now.
Well, see, here's an interesting part about their crazy conversation that's going on. Momotaro being so stern. That the British, first of all, they have Oni horns.
Oh yeah,
on their heads.
Literally foreign devils. Yeah.
Then, as they're talking to him, I don't have control of the airfield. Okay, that's fine. And then they whisper to each other, well, should we stall for time? We should bluff. We're winning the war anyway, so we just need to hold on. I'm like, what did they just say?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm like, hold on. If you guys did this in exact order, so part 1 was started in 1942, then maybe part 2 is 43, 44, and then part 3 is now the last bit of production you're doing, and it's right before the end of the war is coming. It's like, was that just a tacit admission that you lost the war? No, the military would never allow that.
No.
And yet it's not even mumbled. I mean, it's whispered between them, but they are very aware of the fact that, wow, here's your enemy saying they already won the war and they're just stalling for time. Like, wow, okay, so that tells me you know what's coming.
Oh yeah.
And that apparently the censors either didn't care or just didn't notice it because it was in English.
Well, and I also suspect that it was
good English, possible. By the way.
Yeah, well, that's another thing we'll get to in a second.
Oddly good English.
I took that as basically them sending the message that even if we, the Japanese, are losing, even if everything is going against us, we still fight, we still get to go down, we still, it doesn't matter, how the war is going, we still, take to the beaches.
Doesn't matter if we're losing, we're still fighting.
Exactly.
Hardly motivational.
It is strongly theorized that the English voice actors in this movie were prisoners of war. That were pressed into doing this, hopefully for better, treatment. But I can't imagine anyone in Japan being able to speak, English that fluently and that accurately to like the British inflection as well too, right? Like it's just, it's really interesting. But yeah, no, absolutely, it's remarkable. And also, did you know that they not only did they defeat the British, they also defeat Popeye and Bluto.
Yeah, they missed Popeye and Bluto in that?
Bluto and Popeye are two of the enemies, and an empty can of spinach falls down at Popeye's feet. Yeah.
Oh, dang, I totally zoned out on that one.
So it's like, Western capitalism, all the symbols are gone.
Notes,
Sure, yeah. It was quick.
Well, that movie was very hopeful because as the kids back home, back in the Placid Village, are wanting to do their part in their training, and little Santa, who almost drowned, scared in a tree, ready to jump down and roll, but then he realizes that what he's looking at is America.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to jump. Yeah.
Yep.
And then stamp on it. My little tiny monkey feet. Monkey feet.
Subtle, very subtle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, let's just be honest. The fact of Momotaro insisting on unconditional surrender, as like the whole point of that scene, is danged ironic. Like you can't. When months later, just a few months later.
You could almost say that they were aping the American.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Man. Yeah.
These jokes hardly tell themselves. One of the things I did look up, and I was trying to figure out, it's Dutch East Indies. Where is this sort of all kicking around? And I found a reference to it that, Momotaro is Peach Boy. So he's the little boy born of a giant peach floating down the river to an old man and an old woman. I thought that was that's the point of the story, sort of like Bamboo Cutter who finds the girl in the bamboo. You realize that in the Momotaro legend, he conquered an island called Onishima, Oni Island, or Devil Island, which the British refer to as Devil Island.
Yeah.
And that Momotaro forced the local Oni to surrender and to submit to his authority. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. So you guys pretty much borrowed the entirety of the Momotaro story and just dropped it in there, and now you've got the British with Devil Island, and they're the Onis. I'm like, okay, so this makes that a even nice, better little hook in there that people will be like, oh yeah, I know that story. Oh, they're just British instead of regular Oni. Oh, how nice. I feel comfortable hearing this propaganda message.
Well, and that's the thing. Absolutely. I think that's one of the ways they quote unquote got away with it. That I think as a parent, even if you're kind of rolling your eyes at the war a little bit, you hear, it's a Momotaro story. Okay, like obviously there's going to be a propaganda element to it, but it's going to be a Momotaro story, fine, whatever. And you go and you see that, which...
Which I thought was it was interesting by 1945, by that stage of the war. This last piece, again, if it's chronologically done, this last piece, they have ground combat. They have tanks, they have a pillbox, they go up and physically grab the machine gun and pull it out of the pillbox, which, damn brave of you, but pow! Do you notice that for their air fleet, for all the air preparations, for the air cover that they have, for all the air operations, they never once show the Japanese planes bombing anything?
True.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if that's literally like, well, let's not do them bombing the island because our entire population is getting its ass handed to it by firebombing day and night. Let's try to de-emphasize that, and we'll just look at the paratroopers.
Yeah.
The paratroopers, they don't have to blow anything up until they're literally fighting on the ground. So let's not make that a touch point and a safe space moment trigger for the population with bombing.
You got a point there, because when you do at the end of the victory, the victory over the island, over the British, look at the weapons that they
seized,
seized and took control over, and they are. If you look at them, they're like Maxim guns and things like that that are towards the 1930s and the beginning of the war. And the tanks, when they show the tanks, they're showing. I always felt were the U.S. Marine armored cars that were used in the Philippines for the insurrections after we took it from the Spanish, and so a lot of the machinery was outdated.
Yeah.
Whereas the machinery they were using was pretty, I guess, on spot. Right. I don't know if that was just to say that oh, their technology is way behind, or is it something that you're trying to a point you're leading to, which is this actually in chronological order? Is this movie in actual chronological order, or is there a message?
Well, I also suspect that the animators were not allowed access to anything about the American forces. So they had no idea what the tanks looked like, what the guns looked like, and so they were just like, let's go down to the library, what's left of it, and pull out a book about
World War One.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, you think of the tanks as they're rumbling along, they don't have any heavy weapons. They have a machine gun. And it's like, wow, it's a box, sort of like and again, weird, but the German early tank version was a giant box with machine guns.
Yeah.
Like, at least the British Mark IVs or whatever, they had, 3 or 4 pounder guns on the side and machine guns as well, but the German early version tanks were just machine guns in a big box. So it's like, that's what that looks like. And I took it to be, first of all, look at the spoils of war that we've got all this stuff. But also, I think, Steve, there is an element in that. And again, it's another non-visual clue as like, here we are, we've got paratroopers, we've got these, great aircraft, and, the scene where you're looking at the propeller spinning as they're flying through the air. It's like, we've got all this high tech, and look at all this stuff that we captured. Use all this low tech stuff. They could not have won because their stuff is inferior. It's like, so I think they don't have access to the stuff to look at. They're also trying to draw, the nice comparison that they're advanced in what they're doing and everybody else is kind of crap. So I think, you got a lot going on in just that bit there.
Much less the fact that, the assault on the tank, as dramatic as it is drawn in a relatively cartoony style compared to the planes and all the detail of the planes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it definitely feels like this is not as serious as we are.
You want to be wowed by Japanese equipment,
right?
You just want to sort of pass off on foreign stuff.
Yeah, and it's so funny because you don't see, and I mean, there's no necessarily reason you would, but I would expect a film like this to have all sorts of stuff about, our manufacturing power. And, look at all of the... And you look at American propaganda, but hear all the shells rolling off the assembly line and all that stuff. And they just completely ignore that for bucolic Japan and, the attack on Devil Island. And it's interesting how focused they made the film. So I think you're right. I think that there's definitely a... maybe not misdirection going on, but very, very focused direction.
Yeah.
What we do and don't show.
Well, I think given for the Japanese war economy, you never really, but for their shipyards and for their aircraft production, you never really got a sense that a lot of their munitions production was up to the same kind of steam as you had for European powers or the U.S. That, having large assembly factories of all the Panzer tanks where you just see the overhead gantries bringing turrets in and putting them down. Japanese tank production was really so small by comparison that you probably could get a small workshop with 3 of them being worked on with dudes like hammers hitting on them. It's like, geez, that's not as impressive as the Germans. They got like 60 of them in there.
Look at The Wind Rises, and how they're building this, they're designing this plane out in this, hangar out in the middle of nowhere, and just pencil and paper and protractors and all this stuff. And it is definitely not what you'd expect from a German design team. Technologically.
Or the U.S. Design. There was one I saw a snippet of it eons ago, but it was talking about. I think it was the P-38 design. It was a fighter aircraft design. I don't remember which one, but. They showed all these drafting tables. It was like a sort of warehouse-sized thing, and all you saw was just drafting tables and people sitting at drafting tables doing stuff. And it's like, you watch The Wind Rises, and it's just like, there's like 3 people.
3 people at a drafting table.
See, look what I did.
And it's like, versus, the other powers where it's like, you have people that are not drafting the whole aircraft at one time. You have one major draft, and these people are just designing the gear ratio. That's all they're doing.
Yep.
You got 90 people just trying to figure out how the landing gear goes up.
Yeah.
And over this other one, you got one guy who's like, I can design all of them. Like, sure you can, honey. You just keep trying.
And the amazing thing is he did.
Yeah, and a beautiful aircraft that it was.
But yeah.
Unfortunate.
and yeah, that's a whole other story. Yeah. But yeah, no, and it's funny because you watch a movie like this, and you going in, you're gonna see some propaganda. You have a sense of what it's gonna be. But I don't remember the first time I watched this. I got to that last shot, and I literally like leaned back in my chair and started laughing uproariously. Because it's
not,
just...
I think, what you're supposed to do.
No. Because it is just...
Kempei Tai would not be happy.
No. Because it is just so blatant. It is so over the top and in your face with the propaganda message. And because it adds things like, the child voices and all the other stuff, it pushes it beyond, just strong propaganda into this area of just creepiness that makes it hard to take seriously, really.
Yeah.
When you watch the German propaganda movies, and you have the Wagner in the background, and you have these amazing camera shots over, before dunes, and they actually have the planes going over a forest and villages, then the city, and then hitting the sea, and then the whole idea of this is Germany, and this is not to quote the Rammstein song, but this is Germany, and this is of course, and yeah, but it's just heavy, and it's there, and you feel this uplift, and you're supposed to feel this uplift, and you're just supposed to be yes,
yeah.
This, I agree with you. In this, you're just kind of watching this, and you're just like, this is the last gasp. This is, how else are we going to prepare our people? They're still talking about and at the end, they were still talking about taking it to the end, and before the emperor went ahead and did the broadcast. But this was their way of just saying, how else are we going to reach out to the people and get them to be motivated for that one last push? And Kurosawa was during this time making also propaganda films, obviously live action propaganda films. Enough about production of shells. And that's actually where he met his wife, actually, who was an actress. And but
was her name Shelley? Oh, Gaia, stop these jokes. I gotta stop. What's going on? I think I had an aneurysm. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's but he was saying that towards the end there, not only was it hard just because there's no resources to even make the movies to physically make them, but they were just running out of ways to say to the people who were already knowing that it was lost, because look at the shrines, look at how many people are going to the shrines, and how many deaths are. There's nobody's coming back, and things are not. There's that scene in the movie where they're on the airplane eating the rice with a big cherry in the middle, and that's
plum pickle
in the middle, and there's nothing.
Umaboshi, I think it is.
Yeah.
Plum. Umaboshi.
And he was saying that you can't. What else are you going to do? And he said that the films are starting to backslide a little bit in terms of how do we get this message across, because everybody knows.
Yeah,
I think Kurosawa came this close to saying we were, just going to basically make a movie. It's just going, we're all going to die. Here's your rifle, 10 rounds. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, and I give it for this for the format in which they did this, and given the extensive period of time that they had to pull this together, which really made me wonder, looking at some of the quality of it. I know is the fact that the extant copy that you could get to make copies to distribute, that this, trying to make something that's vaguely timeless in a very limited experience. It was going downhill from pretty much 43 on. 42 was probably the maximum extent that the Japanese Empire controlled territory, and then everything after that, Doolittle Raid and on, is just things are going downhill. So they're making stuff presumably with a lack of available paper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As they're going forward, tracing paper and other kinds of tools to do this are becoming scarcer as they're going on. That they could have laid in, like the Germans, with a heavy propaganda message that would have been extremely limited. But you could almost sever the first third of this and take off the chrysanthemum symbol on his naval cap, just blur that out, and you would just have a little romp.
Yeah.
And you could unhook this from the propaganda train.
Yeah.
By just changing some of the symbol, because he's just talking about, instead of saying, oh, it's great to be in the military, you could say, oh, it's great to fly. And then he could just have that whole thing rolling around. Yeah. You could unhook that, and it feels kind of like you didn't lay heavily on the propaganda. You didn't just come out and, sort of wag your finger at people, be like, don't surrender, don't quit, just keep going till everybody's dead. You know what I mean? It was more... It seemed like there was more kind of intent there to make this a gentle hand so that it had some kind of, this is not as bad as it could be. Things are going to be just kind of okay.
And who knows if, that wasn't the plan in 1942. And then as time went on, they're like, no. This has to be more serious. This has to have a stronger message. And they just had to keep on, but they're like, but we already... draw in the first 20 minutes, like we can't go, and they just, wove it more strongly in. Because it certainly does, I think you're absolutely right. It feels, the first 10 minutes of this film feels completely different from the last 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah. But even for the stupid caricature of the British, on Devil Island, even that, it's not as heavy-handed as it could have been. Because they're portraying Momotaro as being stern with these people who are just so silly, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how, they can't control anything. No, I will come in and I will bring order and I will bring justice. But they don't then show any kind of punishment. You don't see Momotaro saying, if you will not do this, then I'm going to take out your lieutenant there and have him shot. You know what I mean? And there are more than enough cases in all theaters of the war where people not meeting demands had consequences. It wasn't just waiting for somebody to get their crap together and then everything's fine. Yes, we agree. We'll just surrender.
You don't.
You know what I mean? It's like
you don't see any of that. You don't see the completion of that battle, right? Like the battle comes up. We see them negotiating. You don't see the defeated British. You don't see them occupying the island. We just cutting right back to the kids in Japan, which I think is a very interesting choice.
Yeah, but then that still gives you that gentle kind of hand to it. I think the last bit is probably the most stark.
Yeah. Because
the British are kind of goofy and stuff, but the little children playing at paratrooper and stomping on the map of the U.S. You don't. You know what I mean? You have the British portrayed as idiots, but you don't have anybody explicitly stomping on a British flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the last thing you see is a child with his little rising sun Dickie hopping out of a tree and then stomping on America. It's like, okay, that's a hard message.
Yeah.
You've just hard messaged me what your feeling is, what your opinion is. Everything else is kind of like, again, we're bringing justice, we're bringing order, we are fair but stern. Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I think if with relatively small changes, with significant changes, I think everything probably up to the assault on the British could have been done, it could have come across and been presented as very much like an American or British war film. Right? Like everything in that feels, excuse me, very similar to that. here's the lovely countryside. Here are the soldiers going off to war. But it just goes over the top, and it adds all those other things to it, and all the other elements of nationalism and all that kind of stuff. You're right. It kind of undercuts those elements.
Yeah. Listening to you talk about that, it reminded me of the bridge on the River Kwai, and how the Japanese treated the British differently than the American prisoners.
True.
And that, not just in that movie, but historically. And, I was kind of thinking like, well, not that they have a kinship with the British. Maybe they had a better understanding of the British. Both of them are based out of monarchies. Both of them have had, histories of totalitarianism through the monarchies and that kind of order. And the British were, in a certain sense, orderly in their surrender and things of that nature.
And also, let's not forget that in that whole conflict, and going back centuries, Japan had never really had any serious problems with the British. It was the Portuguese, it was Russia, it was the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the U.S. What you were talking about earlier. It was the U.S. Coming in under the Perry, and we're the ones who basically just said, "Yeah, we're going to open you up to the world, whether you like it or not." And so there's this kind of like that, as you're saying, that stern message at the end, where the kid is stomping on the U.S. because the U.S. is really the enemy.
Yeah.
The real enemy, and that's the people that we really got to prepare for. So we're going to take out these all small fry. We're going to take out the British, but the Americans are coming, so we got to be prepared.
Which is just so interesting because the interwar period, post World War I, where Japan was allied with the U.S., with Britain, you know what I mean? That we're all on the same side. That the naval treaties and the naval cooperation between the U.S. and Japan, up until the militarization of the 30s. You'd think they would have been like, you're the people we need to be with, and it's the British who are holding on to these colonies in Singapore and in Hong Kong, and have the concession in Shanghai. That they and the Europeans are the ones that are stealing the birthright of the greater East Asian co-prosperity sphere. They're the ones causing the problem.
Let's not forget the Japanese had no problem with that.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to do the stealing.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Somebody else had already beat them to the punch.
Yeah,
That's no fun. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But that's just.
Yeah.
But then, what do we know? What do we know post World War I? The British also had plans drawn up, just in the offhand chance there was a war with America, even though we've been allied in World War I. Like, okay.
Yep.
Friendships like that only go so far.
Well, and also, that gets into the whole thing. There was a recent thing where it was revealed that the U.S. military has a backup plan in case of zombie apocalypse. And they said, understand, this is our job. It is our job to think through every possible scenario. And no, we don't really think there's going to be a zombie apocalypse. But it is that is a useful thought exercise to plan for. And you pull that back to Momotaro, right? Like, this is a movie saying, here's what we see coming down the pike. Here's what we're trying to prepare you as children for, horrifically. And so, it's going to be great as a soldier. It's going to be great as a sailor. It's going to be wonderful. And but we have this. I think you're absolutely right. We have this much scarier thing that we can only allude to in our final moments. That is the real enemy coming at us, and we sure would not long after.
Yeah. Well, it's just all these kinds of things where you drag kids into it. There's plenty of stories of German kids who had gone through the youth training and were going to the schools to learn to be the Gauleiter for Minsk the Gauleiter for Moscow. That they were in these schools being told, you know what, in just a few years when the war's won, you guys are going to be the top rank, and you're going to control these areas. These are going to be how you're going to organize these politically. And here you've got this lovely Momotaro film saying, you kids, it's going to be great to be soldiers, and it's going to be great to fly planes, and it's going to be great to be in the Navy. And it's like, all you jackasses robbed these people of their future.
Yeah.
You sold them this thing. The kids are out there singing their alphabet song and their work song and thinking about how this is going to be great, this greater East Asian co-prosperity sphere, and everything's going to be lovely and wonderful, except for all the cities are on fire, and nobody's seen any of the adult male population for like 5 or 6 years, and now everything's over. I can't be a sailor. I can't be a soldier. I can't be a pilot. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
I can go to work in what remaining jobs there are because the soldiers aren't coming back. And so that's my hope for glory and pride is now just to fill in a dead man's shoes.
Was it Tomino or Yaz who was talking about how they grew up in the 60s, 50s and 60s, and they grew up doing that, right? Like they were the generation, the post-war generation that had to find the jobs, who were living with the immediate after effects of the war. And it was why Gundam and so many of those works are so virulently anti-war, and so how dare they do this? And they said, we were the ones yelling at the older generation, saying, how could you have put us in this situation? Like, what was in your heads to cause this devastation? Because it was. I mean, it was apocalyptic, and this was part of it.
Yeah. There's again, of course, one of my favorites. The Bad Sleep Well, the one that's off Hamlet. There's a scene in there where the guy, the main character, Toshiro Mifune, not Toshiro Mifune, one of the other
Toshiro
characters.
Mifune?
Yeah. Is standing atop this pile of rubble next to a smokestack. It's still the remnants of a bombing campaign there of their town, and like it's actual real life. This is a real thing.
Oh wow!
And he's talking to his friend, he's trying to get his friend to help him with his plot, and he's saying, God, remember right after the war when you and I were just kids and we just had our wheelbarrows and we were just getting paid cents on the dollar to get the scrap metal out of this here yard and take it over to the recycling center so that we could, little bit of rice that night, and that kind of thing. And it's just like, that movie really Momotaro does not prepare you for any of that.
Yeah.
It does, and there's this, and again, the great scene in the airplane when they're eating the pickled plum in the rice. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like going, well, how many of those kids watching the movie were probably sitting there with like, I didn't have dinner tonight.
Yeah. Yep,
I get fed well in the military.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Which, again, the airfield, hey, you like melons? You like bananas? It's like, food. Military gets food given to them by the locals. Nice.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about regarding Momotaro's Sacred Sailors and the experience thereof?
It was a thing.
It was a thing with a brick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they did some very interesting stuff. It's again, given the limited supplies that they had by 45, I'm amazed that they had the ability to actually animate anything, that they had any paper to draw on, that they had anything to do. So
actually, there is something to be said for that. You're right.
Absolutely.
I mean, they did not have disposable forestry in great number in Japan to make a lot of paper.
Yeah.
So they were bringing in a lot of paper, timber in from Korea, from China, from anywhere else they could get it. And by the time you get to the end of the war, I think I saw something today that was talking about the U.S. submarine services accounted for 60% of losses of Japanese commercial vessels, which meant choking off food, raw materials, timber.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And much less celluloid. Where do you get that?
Yeah, no joke.
actual cells. It's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely a thing, and you're absolutely right. It is a remarkable achievement. It's in some moments a gorgeous film. It is the technical skills are definitely there for especially the nature stuff. But then it's just tainted in those aspects.
Some of the movements, like the part with the black ships. Some of the movements are, even if it's rotoscoped, it's not like Flowers of Evil where it just makes me want to claw my eyes out. You know what I mean? It just makes me think of the guy walking down the hallway with his sword and just how fluid it is as he's moving. And it's like, guys, you know what you were doing with this. You obviously, by the time you get to this point, 42 into 45, you've really crafted this. The movements are much better. The paratrooping, even if you're using German newsreels to get that jumping motion, you've still animated it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's done well, despite the fact, like when they're loading the plane, despite the fact that you've got just generic figures walking to go into the plane, their load sequence, not necessarily their walking sequence, but their load sequence getting into the plane is done well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repeat movement in the parachute packing, and it's a loop movement. But you've still got some great parts where they're tying off the parachute line, where you guys were doing a great job with this, and what a crappy time to be a good animator.
Yeah,
exactly. There we go. What more can be said? Yeah, it's so that's Momotaro. Definitely a film worth knowing about, and a film being aware of, and a film worth watching probably once in your life. I don't know how much more you would do than that, but that is that.
This was my second time through, and I took a lot of notes.
Yeah.
I took a lot of notes.
Wow.
Yeah, I took like 3 notes for Akira because I've seen Akira so much.
That's the thing. That's one of the problems with Akira. Absolutely, is it's become so familiar.
Yeah.
So, question: what have you all been watching this week? What have you all been experiencing this week in the world of anime and geek media in general?
Uzaki-chan wants to play.
Oh. How cute.
It's still so cute. Oh, I just enjoy the hell out of it. And Ray Zero, I keep watching it, and I'm so set at what they've done, although I understand full well what they've done.
Okay.
They unhooked the REM ship by making a plot point that moots the REM experience.
Huh.
And shifts the gears back onto Amelia.
Okay.
I get it. That was the story from the start. The whole REM thing was supposed to be, this not filler, but it's just supposed to be the nice understory that keeps things kind of cutesy and fun, and then you're moving forward with the general story, so the general plot. But the way that they unhooked that ship leaves me a little at sea.
Yeah. Nice.
There's the aneurysm again. I've been watching that and just kind of gritting my teeth at it, enjoying it more and more as it goes on. And it's further away from certain events that it's getting better.
Okay.
And then watching Snafu.
Oh.
It's not nearly as funny this season. But wow, it really, instead of just having, not slapstick, but just sort of this sort of biting, sarcastic humor that's going on with the characters and their interactions, you're actually having like real development, and you're learning more about the characters themselves. And I generally got sucked into it. It's up to episode 11 out of 12.
Okay.
So there's not anything left that you can really go with in the last episode necessarily. It's probably a beach episode. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it finally, after the first few episodes, 1 or 2, I was like, and then by 11, I'm like, well, no, good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of folks were expecting, much out of snafu. You know, nothing against it. Just I think the general reputation was, oh, that's a fun little piece of candy.
Yeah, they actually have done some development with it that's satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be satisfying in the direction that you want, but then what do we know about any of the shipping wars? You never ship everybody on the same ship. Everybody's like, no, he and she was much better, or no, that was greater. Maybe those two should be together. It's like, no, if that's not their intent, Ray Zero. Their intent is to have Subaru and Amelia. That's where it's going.
Yep.
It doesn't matter anybody else who shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I started watching Ergo Proxy.
Oh, okay. That is one I have not gotten to yet, and people keep telling me to get into.
Wow. One of the very few, one of the only ones, I think, the end song to Ergo Proxy is Paranoid Android by Radiohead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm like,
interesting.
what? I haven't looked up who did the intro song, but it's another band. And I'm just like,
yeah.
So this isn't Lisa. It's not, Myth and Royd. It's not traditionally a Japanese band doing the intro and exit songs.
Yeah.
It's a Western band. I'm like, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm unexpectedly enjoying it. I thought it would be too dark for my flavor, but I'm really liking it.
Cool.
Well, there we go.
Nice.
How about y'all?
Steve?
Oh, I tried giving Iron Blood or
Iron-Blooded Orphans?
Gundam.
Oh yeah.
Iron-Blooded Orphans.
Yeah. I got about 2 episodes into it, and for some reason it's not clicking with me. And so I went back to Mobile Suits Unicorn.
Oh.
Went back to that.
Yeah.
And watching that, and was it last night? No, it was the night before. Last night was Milk Cow. And what the scene I was entranced by was I'm getting my suit names mixed up, so I'm just going to describe it. It's the one where she pilots it with it's green and it has the multiple cannons that can come out on its own, and I forget what it's called. The battle sequence on that I really enjoyed. What I really enjoyed the most was the inside of the cockpit and watching the I guess their version of an altimeter, or because it's a 360 and a thing on the inside, and just her being able to manage everything's going on. And I really liked how, for a change, because I know you've gotten the question before, Brett, in your panels, which is how is the movement translated, with the mecha, with doing this and that and the other thing, and then you actually see her fingers, touching a button to, and it actually happens in the other mecha as well, where they're like in seconds, like doing double taps, triple taps, and preparing cannon or projectile missiles or something coming out.
Yeah.
And, I just thought it was a really interesting thing, so I think I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
And we got to watch the cinematic masterpiece of Satellite Girl and Milk Cow, and and I'll never look at milk again the same way. And like I said before, we got on camera here, you have ruined cereal for me forever.
Yeah. So Satellite Girl and Milk Cow is a 2014 South Korean animated film. And it has a very distinct look. I actually like a lot of it, but it makes some bold choices in terms of its plot points, and some of the visual imagery, and some of the character designs. And it's
Toilet Paper Wizard.
Toilet Paper Wizard. Yep, that is a character in that film.
Paper Wizard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How timely in the time of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was a. I'm ultimately glad I watched it in the sense that that is a film that I will talk to people about in the future. But it's,
And
you know,
they'll
it's
look
fun.
at you like you're insane.
Uh-huh,
That's okay.
And it's definitely, you know, part of the whole canon of South Korean animated cinema, but not something I'm going to recommend a lot. I did finish watching Space Battleship Yamato this week, season 1. And I may have to go into spoiler mode on this because, oh my gosh, that ending. Which is satisfying in many ways. In the sense that...
Sure.
So I'll put it this way. Trying to do this in a way that isn't spoilery. Like, around episode 20 or 21, I was like, is this actually going to have an ending at the end of the season? Like, is this going to just... Are we just going to be sort of halfway to Gamelus by the end of the season or something? Or will we, like, get there, that's going to be the climax or whatever? And no, like, this has a climax and a full, satisfying ending from a plot perspective. It all goes there. But, oh my gosh, some of the frickin' plot twists on the way there just come completely out of nowhere and feel like bad G.I. Joe writing. It's just really weird. And other moments, I'm like, you know, well done. Like that is a great plot twist. It's a great element. I like that. Some things that kind of come out of nowhere, I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with that. Like, you know, fine. It seems a little silly, but that's you know, you made it work. And others are just like, what? No! Don't! Why would you do that? You know. So very interesting experience.
Because of the time when it happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's at the time that happened, they were doing things and trying stuff, and boy, you know,
yeah,
it had that ending. I think because they legitimately had no idea if anybody in the world would ever like pay attention to it.
That's the thing.
There may never have been a second season, which it's amazing they offered an ending because currently everybody loves doing that. Let's do 12 episodes and then we'll just leave it on a cliffhanger. If we never get any funding for it, oh well. Like,
that's the thing. According to the translator's notes, like by the time the final episode aired, the staff were already working on other anime. Like they'd already disbanded the office. You know, like it was already moved on. Like Yamato was a thing. We're forgetting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's. And that's the thing. It's like I was very like, oh, we get an ending. We get a completion to that storyline. Thank you. But also like.
But then you see, they move on to the Comet Empire. They they now have the current versions like Yamato 2205. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where Gundam, you know, they at the time presumably didn't think this is ever going to last for like the next 40 years. It's like certainly Yamato doesn't have the kind of log of material that Gundam has, but it still keeps going. It's the little ship that could.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's also weird. I hope this isn't a spoiler. I thought this isn't. I thought okay, I'm just gonna say it. I thought the Yamato would blow up at the end. Like I expected this to have a big tragic ending, where the Yamato they get back and they save Earth, but everything falls apart at the very end, and everyone dies, but the Yamato in a husk manages to get it down with the one final pilot getting it down, and he died. And you get a much more positive ending than that, which kind of surprised me.
Well, I mean, most of the show, there's impossible survival moments. Could you have envisioned a large ship using asteroids as a shield? Swirling around the ship? No. It's just what kind of ridiculous crap is
that? I'd also like to see their repair fleet. Because I don't know how they get that much damage every episode, and then it's repaired good as new the next episode. It's where
they have a replicator.
Apparently, yeah.
It just apparently makes millions of tons of high density steel plate stuff.
Yeah.
There's not just a giant trailer right behind you. They're dragging it along.
Sad sack is just like, oh, we need another 20 megaton steel plate. Let's just go get that out with the
There
trailer.
we go. Yeah, the camera angle never shows you the giant warehouse box that's behind the ship. I always wondered.
Yeah, but it's also that's every week the giant robot gets all bashed up in any given mecha series at the time, and it's fine, whatever. It's no one's bothering. I remember it may have been Anno, it may have been somebody talking about the fact that early giant robots could all be controlled by like 2 buttons and a joystick, and like that was the entire control scheme. And he said no one cared. Like they knew they were making this for 8-year-olds. They knew the 8-year-olds weren't worrying about that, and so that just kind of became a thing. Where it's just we get it. Like there is no good control scheme for a giant robot, so it's just a joystick and 2 buttons. Like it's fine.
If only they knew that now 8-year-olds are worried about being influencers with their Instagram accounts.
Exactly.
And, 2 buttons and a joystick, it ain't gonna cut it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jay's asking in the chat, come on, an anime that you would like to get a second chance, that you kind of abandoned at the time, and now it's kind of itching in the back of your head that you'd like to go back to that at some point. I have hundreds probably that I've watched. And I'd like to get back to it. I just haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I have a laundry list of ones that I'm in the middle of.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm gonna get back to them, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of where I'm at too. Yeah.
I'm actually just gonna scroll back through some of my collection here. Let's see here. Ghost in the Shell Arise. Be one of the big ones. Because I love Ghost in the Shell and just never got through that one.
Liked it, but you have to orient.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely for that one.
I just need to get back to El Hazard. I've seen a good chunk of it, and it's one of those things where I got like one OVA left in the TV, like half the TV series. Would love to finish out El Hazard.
There really are so many.
Yeah.
Ones I just didn't finish, like Last Exile.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah.
Last Exile, the Dragon one that's on Netflix right now, where they're flying around in the blimps.
Oh
I really
yeah.
like that one, but I just haven't finished it yet.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the one. There's one, and I can't remember what it is. I know I rage quit on it. There was something that happened in it, and it's probably scarred me so bad that I just blanked it out of my head. But I'm trying to remember what it was. And
Is that it?
Yeah.
A lot of people felt uncomfortable with the Shield Hero, and obviously the first episode of Goblin Slayer. A lot of people got like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of folks that quit on that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Jay makes a good point. Is there a series that or something that you like, you really want to get back to? Like now the time has passed, you're like, ooh, like I feel bad for having stopped. Blue Gender, okay.
Blue Gender, and Vandred. Vandred is very interesting at the time, or at the time that I was watching it, I was kind of like, okay, this is an unusual concept. But now I think that because the way today is, as opposed to, I think, 10, 15 years ago when Vandred came out, here in America, things are so radically different socially, particularly the LGBTQ community, and so that's probably what I want to get about. I think that's now that I don't want to say woke, but now that I have a better idea of things, this might be a thing to come back to. Pilot Candidate, I will never go back to.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it.
Okay.
I hated it so much. It was. I really think that its sole existence is because it's a robot ad.
Robot ad?
It's a Roomba ad. The
Roomba.
Yeah.
I thought you said a robot ad. I'm like, it's a robot ad. Okay. Buying a robot or done by a robot? Which one?
Well, it just seemed like every other joke sequence was this little Roomba thing. It was about the time that they first started coming out.
Mm.
Came out, cleaned up the dude's cigarette mess or somebody's mess or something like that. I just felt like it was an ad for it. And plus, I just didn't like the main characters.
Fair. Yeah. Noeen is actually one. Definitely for me. Noeen is a like an animator showcase, basically, a very weird sci-fi series where basically it's a couple of kids, and there is an alternate dimension in which there's this dragon princess that needs to save the world, but their dragon princess died, and so they're basically dimension hopping to find another dimension that has where their dragon princess is still alive, so they can sort of snatch her and take her, and so they find, and it's this Earth, and it's these kids, and it's this girl. But the thing is, the people coming to fetch her are like 10-year older versions of these same characters, because they're the friends of the dragon princess, right? So it's, the guy trying to protect this like 11-year-old girl is trying to protect her from a 10 years older adult version of himself. So it's very interesting, of that whole thing. And the animation is just crazy. Like, some of it's very basic, and some of it's just gorgeous. So just a very odd little work. But one of those things where, if you watch the first episode, you will know exactly where you stand. You'll either be like, this isn't doing anything for me. You'll be like, what? I must know more, So.
Another one I thought of about, like I enjoy, but I haven't gotten back to and haven't finished it yet, is Agaretsu. On Netflix.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I like music so much or whatever. Just the fact that there's this nice little red panda that she's kind of stressed out. She goes into a little karaoke booth and she's just like, there's more to it, obviously.
Yeah.
It's actually a good show, but yeah, that's what I'd like to get back to.
I hear that.
Honestly, I can't think of too much that I would miss not going back. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I will, to the ones that I've started, that I'm few episodes in, etc. I will get to the end of them. A couple weeks ago, I went through and I knocked out a couple that I was 3 out of 12 episodes into. So I just went and kind of knocked them out, got them done, off I went. Aren't any that I can think off the top of my head that I'm burning to get back to, and I just for some reason haven't had a chance. I have more than enough chance. There's some are just not the right place at the right time to go to them. I would like to go back to original Gundam and start working my way up through Gundam again. But that is like a sort of passion project. I definitely don't have time to do that any reasonable way.
I want to do that with Robotech, but I just don't. There's just no time.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like, so everything else, I will eventually get to it. And some of the stuff, like I got to World Trigger. I think I got to the 52nd episode of World Trigger, and just said I can't do it anymore. I can't watch.
I'm on the 3rd episode of One Piece, and I can't wait to finish it. I'll probably not.
And I made it to episode 60 of Yakitate Japan because I was really hoping it was going to be like Food Wars, but about baking.
How is Food Wars? I'm interested in that. Is it good?
Through the 4th plate, brilliant.
Okay.
You would have to find out for yourself what you think of the 5th plate. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Oh my goodness, I'm unstoppable. Yeah, it's done so much and done so well with plot line and story and character development all the way up through the 4th plate, and then fifth plate's like a beach episode. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? You've already done this thing. You've already given me so much, and now you're just like, hey, I'm gonna whip the dead horse here. Thank you. I don't really need that. So that's one I pretty likely won't go back to. I watched 3 episodes of it. I'm like, nope. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's another one that so I'm not longing to get back to it to complete that because I just don't like it.
Yep. I hear that. Cygnus asked for favorite cheesy anime. I can answer that. I don't have favorites, but the one that leaps to mind is Mao-chan. The story of the cute Earth Defense Force. It is Ken Akamatsu's parody of Japanese cuteness in military form.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it is very cheesy and very intentionally so. But yeah, that's great fun.
Mine has it's an older one, and I don't know if it's so much that it's cheesy, that it's very, very, very situational rom-com, and that's Maison and Koku.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's definitely cheesiness in that.
Yeah. Love the manga, like the anime. I've been wanting to see the live action that was on many years ago.
Cheesy, I love to dive into Seitoka Yakuin Domo.
Okay.
Which is just, I've watched it, I think 3 times now. It's just stupid slapstick. I mean, it's, the student council is just, they say some of the most, salacious stuff. There is one particular piece that it's in the middle of the first season where it's, a piece of dried squid, a certain vase, and then yogurt just feature into it.
Oh boy! Oh,
drop dead funny.
Yeah.
So it's just stupid, goofy.
Yeah. I would also put Cutie Honey on there, simply because Cutie Honey is deeply cheesy.
Yeah.
Like it is cheesy on its own plane, but it's also kind of an important, interesting bit of history. It's not particularly complex, and it's very repetitive. So yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, it is educational to watch Cutie Honey, and you'll enjoy maybe 10 episodes worth. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah,
I understand where this is going.
Which is right back to it.
Would you throw Lucky Star and Nichijou in there somewhere?
Interesting. I don't see those
as just kind of goofy-ish.
Yeah, I don't see Lucky Star as cheesy though. I see it as more just like a comedy. I think Lucky Star is more just a sitcom basically about high school girls. I think Kanada's humor is very cheesy. I will definitely agree there.
The chocolate coronets and everything else. I mean, that's just kind of a cheesy joke.
Timothée,
that's exactly.
Cheese, very much so. But yeah.
Yeah, I could. Trying to think of what else. Bludgeoning Angel's not exactly cheesy.
But I mean, I would say it's sort of in that general dimension. Kadocha comes to mind because it is very cheesy at times, but it can be dramatic and romantic and all sorts of other things. Not so much romantic,
right.
But yeah.
His and Her Circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
there's cheesy.
There's definitely some cheese. Well, what's great about His and Her is that it is often kind of throwing cheese in your face, where it's kind of like, we're going to have a very cheesy moment right now, and it's going to just be, all the cheese, and then we're going to be very serious, and it's fun.
It'll be all the cheese.
Yeah.
That sounds like a rating system. on a 0 cheese to all the cheese. Would this be 1/4 cheese? Would this be 1/2 cheese? No, it's all the cheese.
Yes. This is more a Gouda as opposed to a Swiss, I think. Would be my view on that.
I guess that would be a Gouda rating system.
Hey. And I'll agree with you, Jay. As much as I love Tenchi Muyo OVA, that can be quite cheesy. There's definitely cheese in Tenchi, all the way around. As much as Tenchi Muyo and Love broke my heart, and Tenchi Forever too, actually. Both very emotional moments in those movies. Something that the
Crunchyroll's got a Tenchi that's going on right now that I
OVA5.
like they do not understand what the hell's going on.
Do not watch any of the OVAs past 2, basically.
Well, there's a lot of background to the royal family and the ancillary families, something else, and I'm like,
no.
I'm not deep enough into this to understand what's going on.
OVAs 4 and 5, I believe, were made entirely for the fans to fill them in on backstory. That's basically all they do.
Feels like it.
Yep, that's all they do. It's just like, you've wondered why this character and that character claim to be, mother and son, but they're actually 300 years old. But here's why. It's like, oh, okay, well, fine, but I don't need to know that I needed a whole OVA for that.
Yeah, and like a 25-minute OVA. Where it's like 6 women and Tenchi sitting around talking about, oh, well, such and such your cousin, and such and such over here. I'm like, who?
I may have shared this before, but there's a great moment in Tenchi GXP where the main character who lives in the same town as Tenchi and is kind of aware of all the craziness over there, ends up getting whisked away to be a member of the Galaxy Police, and he's talking to one of the people and says, so what is the deal with Tenchi? Like, everyone knows who Tenchi is, like, he's this universal figure, what's going on? And the character goes, all right, and then out of nowhere pulls down like a whole family tree and explains, so Tenchi Masaki is the grandson of this person and that person, and then and it's just like, because like every Tenchi fan has had to do that at some point of explaining, okay, well, there's this whole family thing, and it's just kind of like acknowledging the thing.
You could have cut out all those OVAs with just that chart.
Well, that's the thing. It has gotten
actually been more helpful.
It has gotten so much more complicated than that because there are dozens of characters in this family tree now. Some of whom have traveled through time, some of whom don't exist anymore, some of whom have come into existence, and there are multiple timelines. So, are you talking about OVA continuity, TV continuity, Pretty Sammy continuity? Yeah.
I didn't realize they turned into the DC universe.
Yes, it's basically what it is. And the original author, like, that's his pet universe, and so he's written like novels and all sorts of stuff in that universe. They've never been animated because he's like, I love the fact that this gets animated, but I'm also going to explore the universe as well. So there's all this lore, all this stuff. In fact, the head of AIC said he went over to Kajishima's house at one point and was just sifting through all this material, and he said, okay, we will be spending the rest of my life animating Tenchi because there's just that much material here. And he's like, sorry, like I write a lot. That's kind of what I do. So yeah, it's unfortunately these OVAs have been just kind of these weird characters sitting around talking about the backstory of their universe.
Family. Okay. Yeah. Their family and everything that's going on. Like,
yeah. Could you be just give me a pamphlet. Just a little pamphlet explaining everything. I'm fine. Weird. Yeah, absolutely. Duel absolutely takes place in the universe. In fact, it's been tied in. There are War on Geminar, the OVA, is tied directly to Duel Parallel Temple Adventure, which is really cool. But we're getting to spoiler territory. I don't want to get into too much of that. That's weird. You guys hear that? And welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending September 19th, 2020. We're going to talk through some news items here. We're just going to be a little more just sort of laid back and relaxed about this. And we're going to start right off with some Sword Art Online news. The final episode of Alicization aired recently and ended with a little tease for the fans that the Sword Art Online progressive light novel series will be getting an anime project. Actually, that down there says TV anime. It did not say TV anime, it just said anime project. So, could be OVA, could be something else. For those unfamiliar, the progressive novel series is a retelling of the original Sword Art Online novels. So it is a kind of a rework of original SAO. They've been out since 2012. The first novel launched in 2012. And they're about the journey of Kirito through MacLeod Castle, floor by floor, all the way through. So this was definitely one of the big news items of the week. Is this something that gets you guys interested? Are you familiar with SAO at all? Is an SAO thing for you guys?
Well, I watched the first anime that came out. I never read any of the light novels.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, light novels are something that I'm kind of not on familiar territory with. It's not something I normally get into. But the Sword Light, seems to have such a big universe to it, or it's starting to have a big universe to it. Almost feeling a little lost. So this feels like something else on top of it. How we were talking about. And I don't think it's as bad as that.
No.
But you'd have to work to get that far. But, it just feels like it's going in that direction.
10 years.
So. Yeah.
I saw the little snippet on it that said it's going to be a recap, right?
Yeah, it's basically a retelling of the original story, focusing on the castle.
So Aincrad, the thingy. I welcome that. I certainly Gun Gale 2, where it's part of the franchise, but it's now that part is sort of receding away from SAO quickly. I don't know where that's going to go. I get going back to the other talk. I trying to get back to the Alicization, the war in the Netherworld or Underworld, wherever. I'm trying to get back to that. I'm just not at the right place. I'm in rom-com mode at the moment. You know what I mean? I'm into that lighter subject matter. So
sure.
I haven't gotten as far into Alicization as I would like to be.
Yeah. Do you think this will be this will bring in new fans? Do you think folks will say, "Oh well, I didn't get into SAO like we were saying because of all this stuff. Well, it's a retelling, so I can just kind of get in now and have and know the story from a new starting point."
I mean, it seems like a fairly obvious ploy because I think you could probably watch the current SAO, the War in the Underworld. But it really. You could watch Gun Gale 2 by itself because none of it makes any connection really actually to Gun Gale 1.
Okay.
It certainly has absolutely no connection to SAO 2 or SAO 1. So, you know what I mean? Like having a recap of it I'm sure those people have been hearing folks saying, "Oh my gosh, SAO 1 was so good. It was such a great series. Don't listen to the haters." I'm sure that this will, be that way to be like, okay, if I could just get a brief synopsis on this, now I can jump in knowing the characters and what happened over into this series that's currently running, and I can kind of catch up with everybody.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Cool. Speaking of getting back into things, we also got an announcement about Legend of the Galactic Heroes. There is a new anime called Legend of the Galactic Heroes Dainutis, which is a new adaptation of the epic science fiction novels. And they've announced that it's going to be a 24-episode sequel, which will be basically episodes 25 to 48, along with a promotional video. So that is a thing coming. That was a Dainutis Kaiko. The new thesis, Star-Crossed, was a 12-episode series that premiered in April 2018, which was available on Crunchyroll and Funimation. And so we are getting even more of the new Legends of the Galactic Heroes, which is definitely one of those things that is a big franchise that I could never make much headway into.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've made it through, I think, 5 of the first season of the new one,
okay.
not the original.
Like 100 episode, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good, but it I'm not in a hurry to get back to it because that one has got so much going on.
Yeah.
in it. It's the fleet battles are amazing. I could wish for it. They've done it well, at least, where you have fleet battles. Space doesn't have spotlights.
Yeah.
So you do genuinely have parts where you're sitting in the Imperial, command ship with Lohengrin or whatever the blonde dude, and there's space. It's dark. There's fleets out there, and there's shooting, but it's kind of hard to tell. So that they're backing up what you're seeing with like the computer display model, where it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to go through the center of this, we're going to drive these two wedges apart, we're going to flank with that. It's like, so there's a lot of cool stuff going on in that. And the part that's tough is like all the politics that then happen. And it's just like, yes, in any time where you have the Free Federation of Planets and you've got the Imperial, group, yeah, there's politics involved. You've got different people negotiating with different parts of different things going. There's all kinds of crap happening at the same time that's not fighting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the part where it's a little dull. Where it's like, okay, yeah, somebody's in trouble with something, so they've been replaced, and oh, wait a minute, somebody's gonna get like killed. Cool. No, okay, no, they're not doing that. Okay. Like just blow a battleship up or something. Anything. So,
the original series it's not original series, but the first series, watched and enjoyed it because actually I do like those kinds of things. Like that's why I've reread Dune so many times and have scored so many copies of Dune, because that's what I like.
House Atreides forever.
But
House Harkonnen.
So as Brent, as you were describing that they're going to make a sequel and they're going to add these many more seasons or episodes to it, my internal face was just kind of glazing over, and I was just kind of going, I liked it, but it was so hard to get through the first time. Oh, jeez, there's more. And to echo the sentiment, blow something up, please.
Well, and that was my issue. I watched the first episode of both the original and the new one, just kind of see and compare and so forth. And I was like, I'm intrigued. I'm not really sucked in yet, but I can tell if I start watching this and then stop, I'm going to be completely lost.
Absolutely true. This is an anime that you definitely have to, once you start it, you cannot stop it. It's not one of those things like Last Exile where you can just go, I have this interest in this thing because I want to get this done now, so I can put this to the side. No, you have to keep up with this. You have to, even though you can go back to the episodes, it's just easier to have it fresh in your mind.
Reconnecting all the character points.
Because it's been a while since I've seen the first one, and I'm just thinking to myself, just like going, thank God I've read Dune so many times that I could actually recite the entire damn novel. This thing, I'm just kind of like going, God, I'm going to have to figure out all the different, why are they connected? It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
At the beginning is a time to make the most delicate care that the balances are correct. It's not like Akira, which is a very different experience. And speaking of Akira experiences, Funimation announced it is releasing a 4K remaster of the Akira anime film on a limited edition Blu-ray 4K release. It'll come out December 22nd, and it will include a 40-page booklet. This is going to be quite a thing, rather nice. And in addition, IMAX announced on Friday that 4K remaster will screen in selected theaters in the United States September 24th. So, like, this upcoming week. Also, both AMC Theaters and Regal Cinemas began listing September 24th screenings for the 4K remaster. So that will be a potential thing. To give you an idea, the Dragon Ball Super Broly film was the first anime film to screen in IMAX back in January of 2019. In the US, that is. Yeah. And it made a boatload of money, apparently. Like, it was hugely successful. So, yeah, we're getting Akira in 4K and in theaters. What response who is going to go see Akira in theaters, do you think?
Every kid that's heard about it for like the last 20 years.
Honestly, if I had...
the question is, who's going to be near enough to a theater to see it?
That's it, yeah.
And it's like, being able to see it is dependent on the day, which the 24th is a Thursday, I think.
Yep.
Isn't it? Because tomorrow's
Yeah, it
20. Yeah, it's a Thursday.
It's Thursday.
And you know what I mean? So that's a kind of why they can't show things on Fridays or Saturdays. I don't know. But so there's that factor. And how many IMAX theaters are there scattered around? And I think we have an IMAX theater in Blacksburg. And I'm not in Blacksburg.
Well, here's the thing. Like,
you know what I mean? Like,
I just went onto AMC Theaters' website, and sure enough, there's Akira on it, which is an odd experience to begin with. And I'm just kind of scrolling down advanced tickets. I click on that. And I search for my area. It's listing like every AMC theater in my area.
Yeah.
So I think
not
this is
just IMAX. It's general release.
Yeah, it's IMAX, it's AMC, and it's Regal.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think this might be like the first wide release of an anime film in the U.S. that I can think of. Because Miyazaki films don't get them.
Yeah, they get special release stuff.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop was very limited.
Well, would you consider it to... Well, given that it's old, I mean, it's not like a new anime film general release. It's a re-release.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. This is kind of the surprising thing, is the IMAX thing, I was like, that's awesome. It's amazing, but like you were saying, it's okay, but how many, IMAX theaters are out there? But that's a lot of options. The other question is...
With this general release, that literally means everybody who's never had the chance to see it on the big screen can finally get to see it on the big screen. And remastered. Not just ye olde copy on the DVD from 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing is... Okay, now I clicked through to a local a theater, and it says, no showtimes have yet been announced for this theater. Showtimes are usually, for Friday and beyond, are usually posted by Wednesday afternoon, which is odd because it should be timed by now. So I don't know what's going on there. So it is possible that this got sort of seeded on all the theaters, but it's not actually going to have like showtimes at all the theaters. Unknown.
All I know is if I had kids, I'd be like, don't worry about school. Well, no, that's I always worry about school.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Don't worry about sitting on your laptop at home. Sit in the theater. There you go.
Come on, kids, we're going to see Akira. Hey, Dad, why? Come on,
it's time for a field trip. It's an anime field trip.
There we go.
Great.
Japanese culture and visual media.
Education.
Wait a minute. What was the university? Oh my gosh, what was the university club, culture and visual media? Getchiken, there you go. It would be your club time for your children. This is visual media, anime and visual media.
To give you an idea, this release released on IMAX theaters in Japan back on April 3rd. It ranked number 9 when it opened, and it was on 36 screens.
Wow.
Yeah. That's Akira right there. Like that.
There's love for the old film.
Exactly. So.
I read somewhere, and I don't know if you can confirm this, Brent, or not, but I read somewhere that it's actually going to be subbed It's not going to be.
Oh,
there's no
okay.
dub. I think it's going to be subtitled.
Which again, we had this discussion about first dub or second dub, and I had seen the one that was just like not the good one. Well, no, wait a minute. I saw the one with the quiet I am Tetsuo.
Okay, yeah, that's the better one.
It wasn't
Yeah.
the terrible one that was screaming.
Yeah.
Okay, the screaming one is not the good one. I
Yeah.
saw the better one. It was still awkward.
Next time we get together, I'll have to pull out my copy of the old streamlined dub, and we'll just go through select moments of that movie with that old dub.
Yikes.
That's an experience. But yeah, I
apparently so.
I don't see any information on ANN yet about sub versus dub, so they may have announced it, just not here on the site yet. So that's very interesting.
If you can watch it in sub, just hear how the voice actors were supposed to sound. That has value in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the sub dub controversy.
Yeah.
Just purely saying, if you love dubs, great. But at least one time for that film, it's educational to do it sub.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree. Moving on to actually some Crunchyroll news. Crunchyroll announced on Friday it will be streaming Burn the Witch, the theatrical film, which that will be streaming on October 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern in North America, Central America, South America, Europe, Africa, Oceania, the Middle East, and the Commonwealth of Independent States. They have an English subbed version of the second promo video on their site already. And for those curious, this is the most recent thing by Tite Kubo of Bleach fame. So it has that built-in audience already. And I think this is definitely a bit of a coup for Crunchyroll to get something this significant away from Funimation, frankly. And I think it's going to be a little feather in their cap. It certainly looks gorgeous.
They're still there. I mean, Crunchyroll's their whole new tier system, got a high school being their thing with webtoons. They're trying hard to make sure that they're not going to get eclipsed by Sentai or Funimation or any of those. So kudos to them.
Here's the other interesting thing, which I just noticed. The film, the anime will have event screenings for 2 weeks in Japan, opening on October 2nd. So Crunchyroll gets it a day early. Ahead of the Japanese.
I was going to say, instead of their simulcast where it's like, within hours of broadcast in Japan gets it within hours of broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't went a long way. Woo-hoo!
Like everywhere, basically, in the world, other than Japan, I think. Well, Oceania, the Middle East, Europe, it doesn't say, let me just double check here. So I guess not... not China, not India, not the East in general, so to speak,
right. But the middle third of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Those 2.5 billion people, whatever.
Yeah, it's just a small rural population. This will be interesting. It's I wonder what kind of Bleachish kind of things are being brought into this. I hope it's a departure from Bleach story style and art style. The key piece kind of looks a little different than Bleach, so
yeah, it looks like they definitely adapted those designs differently for the movie.
No offense, I mean, just I'm familiar with the Bleach model, so I would like to see something a little different. Yeah,
agreed. I'm curious. Certainly, everything I've seen of it looks, not attached at all to Bleach, story-wise, or character-wise, and so forth. So. I'm curious. I'd love to see where that goes.
The minute they start talking about hollows, I'm turning it off.
Exactly.
I'm out.
We had enough of that.
Captain of the Soul Reaper Society. No!
Speaking of classic anime, let's go back to some even more classic anime. Discotek licensed all of the classic anime this week. They have licensed The Rose of Versailles, the Hajime no Ippo anime from the year 2000, Legend of the Black Heaven, which no one else has ever heard of, Battle Athletes OVA and Battle Athletes Victory, which I certainly heard of because I've talked about here on this channel, Lupin III Tokyo Crisis, Lupin III Woman Called Fujiko Mine, which is a Fujiko Mine-focused spin-off of Lupin, Geno Cyber, Project Eiko, Ninja Senshi Tobikage, aka Ninja Robots, Case Closed, The Crimson Love Letter, one of the 8 billion Detective Conan movies, Submarine Super 99, Simple Gear G, Devilman Lady, and Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World 2. Exactly. And we do know that, so a few details on this. Rose of Versailles will be the HD remaster of the series, which is cool. That'll ship early 2021. Hajime no Ippo will be 2021. It will include all the TV episodes in English and Spanish dubs, except for episode 76, which I don't know why. Plus the Champion Road special and the Mashiba versus Kimura OVA subs only, which is its first release ever in North America. Legends of Black Heaven will be its first release on Blu-ray disc ever in the world. That is how obscure that anime is. Nobody ever cared. It'll be an upscale, including the original Pioneer dub. It is... No, Legends of Black Heaven was a big deal when it came. It was not a big deal when it came out, but it was. People talked about Legends of Black Heaven when it came out, and it just fell off a cliff, unfortunately. That is coming out late 2020 or early 2021. Battle Athletes OVA and Victory will be getting a standard def Blu-ray disc release with newly restored versions of both of them and the original Pioneer dub. That'll come late 2020. I love that dub, so looking forward to that. It'll also include the Song Battle extras, which is cool. The Tokyo Crisis will include the Funimation dub and the ship in 2021. Fujiko Mine will include the Funimation dub from their original release. No release date there. Funimation's license to that expired in August of 2018, so Discotech's basically just picking that up and moving along with it. Geno Cyber will be standard disc. Project Eiko will be remastered using a Domesday duplicator to recover video content from the Laserdisc release. Yeah. My attention is piqued. No release date on that yet. Ninja Robot will include the English dub from that aired on Cartoon Network for the first 20 episodes. The Cartoon Network in India and Asia for the first 20 episodes. Discotech Media says they are currently seeking assistance in tracking down the rest of the dub. So that's a whole story that I would love to learn more about. No release date on that. The Crimson Love Letter Case Closed film is the 21st film in the franchise. It's from 2017. It'll have a new English dub featuring cast from these recent releases. Submarine Super 99 will be the first English translated release for the anime. It's a Leiji Matsumoto work. Will feature upscale video. And that's the notable stuff there. Discotech has already released the first season and the OVA of Konosuba, so this is sort of rounding out their Konosuba release. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming from Discotech Media, which is really cool. I'm very curious what Rose of Versailles looks like in HD. But I don't know. I may have lost John and Steve, sadly, because I see something. I see something weird going on there. So let me just real quick see if I can't do something about that. One moment. Yep. One moment. See if we can't reconnect there, and then we will continue on with the news. There we go. Hold on. Okay. Hey, welcome back.
Okay.
Hey.
We had a bit of a minor technical issue for some reason.
So it kind of went out, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm frozen."
Yeah.
I'm in time.
So I
You
think I got
never
through
make it too far without kind of weird things happening.
There we go.
Rose of Versailles, it just happens to look like Utna, or...
Oh, no. Utna was very much...
No,
yeah.
It just looked like Utna.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Utna was very consciously a pulling from Rose of Versailles visually and such. Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
No question.
And then exactly how are they? You have the inside knowledge on things like Laserdisc kind of stuff. What are they trying to do? They're trying to grab stuff off of a Laserdisc. Shouldn't that be like extremely Laserdisc clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that should be a really, really nice thing. Basically,
so how are they recovering things? I don't understand that.
Well, because the thing is, the Doomsday Duplicator, which totally sounds like an anime device.
Yeah. World ending.
Exactly. Basically, it is pulling the information, the analog information, off of a Laserdisc, and providing a digital. Okay. It's kind of a direct rip off of a Laserdisc, as opposed to just popping it in and doing a sort of a standard transition off of there. Exactly. So just trying to be as close as possible to the original release. If you look up Doomsday, it's DOME, as in the original spelling of Doom. Doomsday86.com is the website for them, and they show some information here, but comparing, they actually show a frame by frame, like a frame example of a standard release and a Doomsday release, and it's notably clearer in the Doomsday release. So they're looking for something like really nice to do this transfer with, which is lovely and something I honestly thought no one would ever do for Project A-ko.
Yeah,
like, I adore that film.
Agree on that. It's this kind of thing where they start doing like tricky stuff that it might get me to actually upgrade from my VHS copies to
right,
actual like decent copies.
And I mean, Project A-ko is absolutely like an animated showcase. It is just the animation in that is just stunning. So I can see them saying that's worth it. Oh no, the Colonel! Oh no, he's coming. It's a little A-ko joke anyway. And this is actually kind of interesting because I did not expect. Discotech's been around for a while. They've been releasing a lot of stuff. They have a big catalog. But it's neat seeing them say, okay, we're not just like rescuing Rose of Versailles. Like we're getting the HD remaster. We're getting these. They're really trying to make sure they got like really nice releases, which is awesome.
Which makes you wonder where they're getting the money for this.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming all those sales of all those Lupin the Third films. I don't know. I guess that the catalog has kind of built up enough.
I was just going to say, when they started talking about the, Lupin stuff that they were bringing back, I'm just like, God damn it, where's my wallet? Fine.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite franchises of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And now is the Fujiko Hine, is that the series they did in 2012?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
That's a very interesting series. It's not for 15-year-olds, I'll say that much. But it's definitely for an adult. Yeah, it's definitely for an adult audience, but it's actually really good, and it puts, interestingly, Goemon and why am I blanking on his name? Gigan, in a very different, interesting, dark for one character and light for another character. Like Goemon, you get a little bit more idea of what he's about. Actually, like he stops being one-dimensional samurai thief, and Gigan, you're just looking at him. You're just like going, okay, he's a lot more cooler, but a lot more darker than we thought. And so I'm just kind of seeing if. So yeah, I'm interested in that. Take my money. Just take my money.
See, I have no idea, Steve, who those characters are. So when you say Goya Man, all I can think of is the Latin American product maker Goya.
Right.
So all I'm envisioning is like Goya Man, where he's like got a Goya shirt on or something. I'm
it's a tension can of Goya beans with a
sword.
Goya Man is if you look at the characters of Lupin the Third, there's obviously Lupin, there's Fujiko, the only woman of the group. Gigan is the guy with the beard and the pipe and the gun, and Goya Man is the samurai looking guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because that's all I could think of, and I'm like, gracias y Goya.
I just assume he's a Digimon of some kind, you know.
A Digimon.
Goemon, Digivolve, too! Probably not. Although I'm sure there's an AMV out there of that somewhere.
If Hello Kitty can do Gundam, then why couldn't Digimon
Exactly.
do Lupin?
Exactly. So moving from that classic anime to another classic anime, Crayon Shin-chan. The Crayon Shin-chan, the movie Crash, Rakuga Kingdom, and roughly 4 Heroes film opened recently at number 1 in theaters in Japan. Sold 212,000 tickets, earning about $2.47 million in its opening weekend, so congratulations. This is the 28th Crayon Shin-chan movie. Opened on September 11th after a delay from April 24th opening due to COVID-19. There were advanced ticket passes on sale on August 7th. Let's see here. The film features a magical crayon, which centers on a floating kingdom that has a theme around scribbling, rakuga, crayon, the whole thing. And there's a whole, there's all sorts of stuff going on in the movie, obviously very colorful. But, Crayon Shin-chan is one of those things that I think most otaku over here aren't familiar with. Or, they've heard of it, but it's not a thing. And like, okay, Crayon Shin-chan, whatever. Number 1 film in Japan on its opening weekend, folks.
In 28 movies.
Yeah.
And if Shin-chan is the Bart Simpson of Japan, the Simpsons only have 1 film.
Yeah.
They've been on the air for like 30 years, but they only have 1 film, not 28 of them. And thank you, Toonami, for having Crayon Shin-chan on at like 3:30 in the morning.
3 in the morning.
Enough to see it and be like, what is going on with that?
Mm-hmm.
I have a special place in my heart for Shin-chan. I just love that anime to death. And I have no good excuse as to why I do. I just do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just boils down to, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but, men have honor in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough.
Wait a minute, Steve, did you like home movies?
Yeah, oh.
Yes, love home movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there you go. The Shin-chan is right in that demographic.
Yeah, okay.
To give you an idea, the latest Doraemon movie dropped to only number 3 in its 6th weekend, earning $1 million from Friday to Sunday.
$1 million.
Yes. Having earned a total of $26.81 million across its run. Opened at number 1 in its first weekend in 377 theaters. So yeah, people love their classic anime characters.
Robot cats from the future.
Hey, totally.
And Shin-chan, which the animation budget might not be the biggest, but it's certainly grossing a lot of cash.
Exactly. Can't argue with success.
Yeah.
Boy. Moving on to also this week. So, new segment this week. I'm just going to run through a few headlines. If anyone wants to mention or talk about them, we can. But otherwise, we're just going to sort of note a few things this week that are a little more straightforward. Funimation will be releasing Violet Evergarden on Blu-ray DVD combo pack in both standard and limited editions later this year. It'll include alternate episodes in both English, dubbed and sub. Limited edition will include a slipcover box with art from the series, 4 cover art cards, a 200-page art book, and a sticker sheet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the box does look gorgeous. Yeah, pretty much, probably. So that is an option. Actually, what I might do, I'm going to transition that way so we can do it that one moment. Hold on, everyone. I have an idea. I'm going to try something which might actually work. It's a crazy idea, but it just might work.
Agnes.
Exactly. Do we push the giant red candy-like button the history erase button?
Not that one. Nope. There we go. So I pull this down here, and I move this like this. There we go.
Ice cream bar my whole life.
Also this week, this way folks can actually hear what you guys are saying. So yes, Funimation. Funimation also announced it will be the exclusive streamer for the regular Magic High School Visitor Arc, which is the second season of regular Magic High School. This will be in US, Canada, UK, and Ireland. It'll also be available through Anime Lab in Australia and New Zealand.
I enjoyed that series. I want to see the second season of it.
Yeah.
And thank you, Funimation.
Pay up. Pay up for that Funimation account.
Yeah.
The director of Banana Fish and Studio Bones have announced that they are going to work on a new original TV anime. That is about everything we know about that. Just that that's their plan.
We're working.
Yes. They will reveal more September 20th on a large public screen in Tokyo. That's what they said.
Okay.
I'm going to expect that's going to be their premiere trailer bit. That's just going to suddenly the screen will go on. You'll see all the magic and wonder of the Studio Bones, and then it'll be like coming soon, and then that'll be it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Go.
And they'll get lots of folks out there with their masks on. That's kind of interesting.
So.
Yeah, exactly. The upcoming Given anime film has sold over 100,000 tickets. This is an upcoming adaptation of a boys' love story. So pre-orders for that have topped 100,000 tickets already. And they'll be adding more theaters probably as a result of that as well. There is a TV anime adaptation of this, and this is the movie version of it. So just worth noting. It's pretty cool. The third Girls und Panzer Das Finale anime film will be airing next spring. So we have spring 2021 is what we're looking for that one. And the director...
Merch ahoy!
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I like that. Merch for...
yeah, exactly. Yes. Precisely.
And he said production's ongoing. They're in editing already, and they're preparing for dialogue recording to begin. So that is chugging right along, which is cool. Update on the live-action Your Name Hollywood adaptation. Yes, that's right. They're planning on doing that. There's a change. Lee Isaac Chung is now on tap to direct the Your Name adaptation. He's going to rewrite the existing script. And
so now it's done.
He directed his first film back in 2007 with Munyurangabo, which is a drama set in Rwanda in the Kinyarwanda language, which was an official selection at Cannes, Toronto, and Berlin. And his most recent film was about living as a Korean American in a farm in Arkansas, which garnered 2 awards at Sundance. So definitely an indie darling. Originally Mark Webb of The Amazing Spider-Man and 500 Days of Summer was going to direct. No idea what happened there. It looks like they're moving sort of away from a, big budget director towards a more indie director thing on that.
Is Your Name really one that's screaming for a live adaptation?
It's not hard.
You know?
I mean, there's some special effects stuff in there, but otherwise it's, it's easier than Akira, definitely.
Yeah, but it's just, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things where it's like,
well,
does anybody really want this?
Well, the other thing is it doesn't have any cultural odor, right? Like it's not particularly, obviously, so people are going to yell at me for that. It is a film that you could easily translate to other countries and, remove the Japanese elements of it, and it would still work. So I think that makes it easier.
you could have somebody living next to the Beringer crater in Arizona
Yep.
and be like, how did the crater get there? Oh, it's, asteroid crashed. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, but the subject matter, the actual, franchise of that doesn't exactly jump at me as like the first thing I would want to adapt into a live action film. Would be that.
Yeah.
Be like,
it also made like $1 billion. So
as an anime,
well,
you know what I mean? It's like
doesn't matter, right? Like,
this is the
flogging
the dead horse again. You know what I mean? Where it's like you've made your money out of it as an anime, and now you're going to try this. You're going to spend money, and it's probably not going to go the same places that the anime did.
Different people, right? Like the anime folks made their money off of it. The Hollywood folks want a piece of that now, and they can tie in. They can say, you know, you heard of this Your Name thing, but you don't like cartoons, so come see our live action version. You know. Yeah, I hear you. And finally, Kyoto Animation has absorbed another company. Animation Do, or Animation Do, was sort of a spin-off. It was originally Kyoto Animation Osaka Studio, established in the year 2000, became its own corporation under the name of Animation Do in December 2010. They worked on Free Iwatomi Swim Club. That was sort of one of their big things. But they've worked with Kyoto Animation on pretty much everything since they started. What's also notable is that this report tells us Kyoto Animation has lost about $202,000 in the fiscal year ending March 31st, while Animation Do lost about $62,000 US in that same year. So Kyoto Animation is not making a lot of money recently, quite understandably, given their situation. But that is just more info, more just worth noting that there's some shifting around in the anime studio world, and that just kind of made sense. So yeah, that's the news for the week.
When I saw that little bit about the acquisition, I didn't realize that it was a former portion of them.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, why are you going and buying something right now?
Mm-hmm.
So I get the
reabsorbing.
Yeah.
Makes much more sense.
Yeah, probably one of those things where they obviously they're both losing money, but it's kind of like, you know, why have problems separately? Let's just have them all together.
You know, what's interesting is you know, hearing the loss on that. You know, 62,000 on one hand and 225,000 on the other, and you have to kind of wonder. You know, you compare. You're so used to hearing losses of millions of dollars, and billions of dollars in entertainment industry. Here you got these two animation studios. Granted, it's a kind of different animal, but you know, when they said, "Wow, we have 62,000 whole," to me, I'm just like, "Going, okay." Okay, you'll get that back, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, $62,000. But you know, that's
so somebody either bought a really nice car, or they have one third of a house. Okay,
right? Yeah. So you know, it's kind of like, I hear that, and I'm just kind of like going, okay, you know, clearly they think they're in dire straits. I don't consider that in dire straits.
Oh,
I think it's interesting how the reaction to that is. Well, let's just knock this out at the start of this and not let it get worse, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't think
it's also interesting that. Go ahead.
I don't think they're in dire straits. I think they're just, you know, they're in a bad year because they just, you know, productivity is down, and so and they were probably, you know, it's one of those things where, as you grow, you look to expand. You have this group in Osaka doing their thing, and they're like, well, do we really need to be one company? Let's sort of split up so we can sort of organize. And then things change, and you're like, well, it's not really helpful for us to be two things because we're basically still working together on everything. So let's just, you know, merge back together.
Right.
So
and not to bring up the obviously sad circumstances of things, but you have people in Osaka, and you probably have people that you need that are seasoned, that know what they're doing, that you can reintegrate into your operation to keep things running until, you know, the appropriate manpower can be put in place.
That's a great point.
So,
yeah,
that's helpful in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't it be nice if all businesses kind of had that acumen of realizing things and just maybe going, let's come up with a better solution as opposed to $1 billion in the hole. What are we going to do? We're going to spend $6 billion take a loss of $4 billion to try to redo it. You know, it's just refreshing to see that kind of just like that
Exactly.
forethought and thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, let's not borrow more trouble. Let's
Totally.
towards this.
Totally. Agreed. Cool. I completely forgot about anime history this week. Is there anything on my list? One moment. Let me just see if there's anything I wanted to mention.
Today on this date, there was anime.
I know Mamoru Hosoda's birthday is, I believe, today. Let me just... So this might just be a... Hi, camera. Let's talk about the history. Just waiting for my...
It still counts. It's still good. It's
Yeah,
still good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are in September 19th. Okay. Wow. Okay. So we have 2 items this week. Other than that, let me just go through this real quick. So let's go back all the way to September 15th, 1970, the premiere of Cleopatra, the first X-rated anime film, premiered in Japan, all the way back then. Also came over to America shortly thereafter. The first anime, aimed at adults with adult content, and definitely adult content. And that is where that all got started. So that's a thing. Made by Osamu Tezuka.
Licensed by Discotech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything ties together. And then moving forward to September 14th, 1999, sort of an obscure day. This was the day of the first home video release of Cowboy Bebop in the United States on VHS.
Oh.
Wow, how many tapes would that have been?
Yeah, it came out on DVDs shortly thereafter, I remember. But that was, VHS was still very much a thing. And
Yeah,
so its
yeah.
first release was VHS. I don't know anyone who actually bought it on VHS. They're like, we're waiting for DVD.
Yeah, I was just saying that box set would be
definitely.
huge. You probably could get you probably get
Couple.
3 or 4 episodes,
Sure, yeah.
maybe 20, 40, 60.
wait.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, how would they work in the banned episode, the one that was banned in Japan but released here? Which episode was that?
I
That
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, when they transferred, there's an actual episode in the series that was pretty sure it was banned in Japan, and then over here we showed the. Bless you again.
twice.
Thank you. Excuse me.
One more time for good luck.
COVID. No. It's the mutant factor now. Brent will become stronger than all of us.
Yeah, there's a banned episode, and I'm trying to remember which.
I think it was the one where they were looking for the Betamax machine because Sony didn't like that content, the idea of the Betamax, so they buried that episode.
I'm looking up here.
I'm just totally kidding. Now Sony's gonna put a hit on me.
So, okay, that can't be right. Okay, yeah, no. I mean, the censorship wiki lists a bunch of stuff, but basically they claim that a whole bunch of Cowboy Bebop was banned on TV Tokyo. What they mean is that they only aired some of the episodes on TV Tokyo. Like they didn't air Jupiter Jazz because there's nudity in it.
Okay.
But I don't think that's a thing. And then they list all the edits to it on Adult Swim. Let's see here, which
Wild Horses was briefly banned.
Okay.
2000.
It's interesting. I never thought to look at the original Bebop versus the Adult Swim Bebop to see what exactly they did.
There's
a whole bunch of stuff.
Subtle.
Yeah. I'm just looking through it right now. I mean, obviously, there's nudity and such in the original, so some of that's censored out.
Right.
The scene that shows blood gushing from Spikes and Vicious's blood in episode 5 was reduced. Was since uncensored in the 2017 run. Episode 6 was banned on Adult Swim Interesting.
Weird.
In episode 7, the scene with Bounty Hunter says, "Oh, S, get this guy too." It says, "Oh, damn, get this guy too." Other things like that. Oh yeah, and then famously, episode 7, which is the terrorist attack one, they stopped showing that after 9/11, and then brought it back in. So yeah, stuff like that. They the scene with Gren in the shower was modified, so they zoom in on Gren a little bit further, and ever since 2017, they've been blurring his nipples, apparently. And then a few other things. Yeah.
Nikubi? What? Chikubi? Nikubi? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's, piles of blood reduced is mostly what I'm seeing here, and then just swearing cut down, which is, again, kind of what you had to do on television. But interesting. So I'm sure there wasn't such a
I didn't know that. Wild Horses was banned because of the Columbia shuttle disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Wild Horses was the one where they just, which is actually one of my favorite top episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I would love to be able to fix machine, because I'm totally mechanically inept. I would love to be able to take a tool, just hold it up to a piece of machinery that's running and go, I know what's wrong with it.
I saw a panel at, I think it was Otakon, with an anime fan and a NASA rocket scientist talking about scientific realism in anime. And they brought up the Wild Horses episode of Cowboy Bebop. And he turned to the rocket scientist and said, "So, what do you think?" And he went, "Well, it's completely unrealistic. However, it is an inspiring episode in the sense that I can see people enjoying the orbital mechanics of it and all those things along those lines." He said, "But I don't think you could ever actually get, spoiler alert, a 200-year-old space shuttle flight worthy, and then just in orbits." Trying to, it's needle in a haystack. Like, there's just no way you could actually hit that thing. It's just, no. We're hiring fighter pilots, and they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He said, but fun episode, totally, and it's anime, like, it's fine.
It's great.
Yeah.
No need to spoil the joy of the show with reality.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, this is a show where a guy like Kung Fu fights his way out of problems. Like, it's not very realistic.
Suspension of disbelief? I think I've heard of that before.
Term means something.
Yes.
Yes.
Anime is not real life? Really? I'm surprised. Very, very
Yeah, I know that painfully. Where's my harem?
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to some folks today. I just realized Tale of Genji is totally a harem anime.
Have you ever read the book?
Pieces, not all the way through, but chunks.
Tales of Genji. Yeah,
It's totally a harem anime.
All he does is go around and talk about all the he goes around basically collecting women. It's sort of his thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Hey, that idea's been around for a long time in Japanese society. Turns out. But,
the original story was supposed to be a love story, by the way.
Harems or love stories?
Yeah.
It just in
very
multi-format.
Broadly amorous.
Yes, very, very, yeah.
Exactly.
Amorous.
One love. That's what it's all about, man.
I was watching a documentary about one of these hippie communes. It was actually fascinating because of all the stuff that happened there. Horrifying in some moments. But they interviewed a woman.
Yes, hippies are horrifying.
They interviewed a woman who grew up there. Like, she was a young child when they went to, and she lived on this commune, for years and years. And they interviewed her at one point, and they said, what are your overall thoughts on the experience and growing up there and how that sort of affected you as a child? And she said, and this is a documentary that came out a little while ago, and she said, well, the great thing about that is I learned to love people equally. And it just, you can be kind of anyone, and, I can really, love you for that. And it moves on. I was like, oh, yes. You love equally. Gotcha. Didn't want to say it on camera, but I think I know what you're implying there. And it's just, that was one of the things, it understandably in an environment like that. But anyway.
Hopefully she didn't learn that as a kid.
It was not, well, the thing is...
the concept, hopefully.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was a hippie commune, so that stuff was going on.
Right.
From what I read, they weren't, it wasn't free love to that extent. But I think it's one of those things where, growing up around there, you would find out eventually. If you wanted to know what was going on between boys and girls, it was a thing. But funnily enough, it was a successful commune in the sense that they went for years and years with ups and downs, but they survived for quite a while. And the thing is, they had this idea of pure, democracy. So, whatever the majority votes, that's how we go. And then a bunch of people showed up, having heard about this great commune, and more or less took over. Like, they came in and they had all sorts of ideas and so forth and started pushing things. And they really believed in the plight of the Cambodians and in the importance of helping everyone understand the plight of the Cambodians. So they took a bunch of the children growing up in the commune and shipped them off to Cambodia. So they would see what it was like in Cambodia. They literally just put them on a plane, separated from their parents, just had to live in Cambodia for a while.
With chaperone?
No.
Just shoved kids on a plane?
Yes, and just dropped off in Cambodia. And obviously they were then, taken somewhere, and they lived with the family. But yeah. Wow. They had the votes.
Wow.
There were enough people there to say, yes, we should do this. And so they were separated from their families, separated from everyone, and just went over there. And that's kind of when that commune... The commune is still functioning, but it's basically a retreat now. But that's when the commune kind of broke down. Like, that's not going to work. No, we're not comfortable with that. They all often found their kids and brought them back and all that kind of stuff. And it all sort of, they all broke up from there. And that was kind of their, our way of doing things had its flaws.
Yeah.
And also that this young woman that they interviewed said, because they asked what was their parenting like, and she said, they spent a lot of time discussing the best way to run the commune, and not a lot of time teaching us kids how we should be spending our time. So there's a lot of internal debate and politics and discussion around things, and less time for everything else. So she said, there's a certain amount of hey, could you stop arguing about Marxism, Leninism, and instead
make dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Spend time with your kids. I don't know. But yeah.
Teach me math.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, well. But it'd be fascinating for me. This very very functional commune for a long time, by commune standards.
So it's very interesting. The utopian movement kind of thing. It usually peters itself out, but you gotta love the kibbutzes in Israel. They go and go and go. Mm-hmm. But I think that's because of the extensive government help they get from it versus trying to be self-sufficient entirely.
There's a commune not far from us. There's a commune in Central Virginia somewhere. There's been a functional commune for decades.
It's called University of Virginia, Charlottesville. It's not really a commune, although there are a bunch of freeloaders that tend to spend a lot of time laying on the lawn. So it looks very similar.
Okay, gotcha. That's
just kidding. Yeah. Just kidding. Just joking.
But no, I was looking this up because and I think it was after watching that documentary, I was kind of Googling, clicking through, and yeah, like there's this place you go and everyone shares all of their stuff, and there's like a whole work setup where everyone's working different things, and it's a functional commune. It's a different than the standard hippie model, if you will, but it's technically one of those. And they're like, we're a couple dozen people, and we hang out and live together, and no marijuana is ever consumed. I have no idea.
Well, and what again would be the interest in that? I mean,
living an intentional life, living a life of focus, getting away. The testimonials on the site talk about how they just they appreciate living in an environment in which they are an intentional part of the community. They know everyone that they're they rely on other people, they rely on them, and so it's a very tight knit community. But it's also not like religious, right? Like it's not a cult. It's just a work environment that is very much set up along these lines. And he says so there's a maybe not a freedom to it, but a simplicity to it.
Yeah, but how do you get over the fact that human beings are jerks sometimes? Like 95% of the time. You know what I mean? It's like if you're relying on somebody to do something, and it's like a critical reliance, and they're relying on someone else, and then somebody's just like a jackass that day. It interrupts the entirety of the thing. And then it's like, then you sort of, because we're humans, you get those little things where it's like, Ted, he did it again.
Sure.
And it's just the 5th time, and now I can't do this. It's like, that just sort of wheedles at you over time. It's surprising that,
the way they put it is, it's like family. You have relatives you can't stand, but you still find a way,
No, you move away from them. I mean,
yeah. I can just see a whole bunch of people in communes just going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, please stop, please stop.
Yeah, and they have systems whereby if you are being completely unreasonable, then you are no longer in that commune anymore, right? Like there's processes in place for all that stuff, and obviously anything illegal they pay attention to that stuff. So, but yeah. But yeah.
Essentially, what we're saying is that I would last all of 5 minutes before they go, Steve, your mouth, just stop. Oh.
See, I'm thinking I'm in the cabin in the woods with the dogs. Just me. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just finished a book by a Zen Buddhist monk about cleaning, oddly enough. But he talks about how, all these monks come together. We don't know each other. We have no commonalities in terms of personality and so forth and so on. But you have to live with them. And you have to work through those issues, and you have to deal with all that stuff. And you come up with a process that makes that work, and you kind of subsume yourself to that. You say, okay, what's going to make all this work? How can we do that? And it's why he talks about cleaning. Is he said cleaning is this sort of central thing that everyone does. It's kind of a unifying practice, and so it kind of brings them all together in a weird way. But anyway.
Except for the one person who gets out their white gloves and go, "You missed a spot over there." And
Oh,
you're like, I'm gonna punch you with that white
oh yeah,
glove.
no. He says,
There's a little dirt right here.
Yeah, no. He says you will get yelled at by senior monks for not leaving something spotless. There is something, I forget what it was. If you leave food in a bowl and put it back without finishing out or cleaning it out, you have to go and apologize to every senior monk.
Wow.
Because it's wasteful and is not honoring what you were given and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and it's obviously to say, don't do that, right? Like just get that in your head to just not do that anymore, because it's a real pain to have to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine everybody you apologize to doesn't just sit there quietly.
Oh no.
Sure, they have some choice words, every single person.
Yeah. Oh boy.
That would be so screwed.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, this is why monasteries have I forget what its term, but you have periods in which you are apprenticing essentially, and you're trying out their life because it's not for everyone.
You're not a novice or an acolyte.
Yeah,
Acolyte?
that stuff. Yeah, that.
Something like that.
Yeah. There's a really interesting.
Some folks make it, some folks don't.
Yeah. There's a really interesting book. I forget the name. Fictional, but it's about a girl who goes in to be a nun, and is considered by the other nuns to be too religious. This is a Catholic, but basically she has such an image of her head of how sacred this is and how she's going to devote herself to God and all these things. There's going to be this wonderful spiritual thing, and they're like, no, you have to live with these people. Like this is a practical rest of your life thing. There are all these, personalities you have to deal with, and all of this. You are not spending all of your time on your knees praying. No. You gotta get it out of your head. Because
we do have a bake sale every month to raise money for.
Yeah.
You have to go do certain things in the real world.
Yeah. It's people have their ideas. Cool. I think that will do it for us. I think through the lists, we've done all that stuff, I do believe. We have indeed. So the question remains, what did we learn on the show tonight, Brett? What have we learned? I've learned that Kyoto Animation lost money, which I guess was not a surprise, but I did learn that, definitely. I learned that the Japanese government produced propaganda in 1945.
Shocking. I'm absolutely shocked.
Unbelievable.
Who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed, exactly. Yeah, I also learned that Shin-chan is popular.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
I should have like the bandana around my head and just going, go
Shin-chan.
Shin-chan. Oh,
Victory.
Go.
Shin-chan.
You can do it, Shin-chan.
Yeah, what did you all learn?
I learned that I would suck as a monk, and that it just not end well with me in the commune. And more importantly, I'm satisfied to see that there are companies out there that want to take older anime and want to bring it back in a nice format, in a proper format, and properly kind of like almost honoring the original format, but bringing it back, just kind of new and improved in the old way, if that makes sense. And learned that Momotaro and the Divine Sea Warriors is definitely, if I didn't know it before, then the imprint of the brick on my forehead should tell you that it is a propaganda film, and because it just hits you like one repeatedly. But if you are into history, it's a must watch because it is fascinating, that aspect. And yet another week goes by where I wish I was a millionaire because there's so much money I need to spend.
Well, if you have any extra, Steve, just send it my way. I'm sure I'll take care of it for you.
There we go.
No problems.
Bro.
I'd say that this week I learned that propaganda doesn't have to be a hard brick to the head. It can be that subtle turning of the screw, and that totalitarian regimes were good at everything from the brick in the head to the pastoral, lovely landscape portraying, the idyllic agrarian yeomanship, I guess you'd say. And that Crayon Shin-chan is really popular.
Yep.
Beyond what I would have thought would have been reasonable.
Exactly. Yeah.
28 films later. Wow. Wow.
People love their Shin-chan.
Yeah, it's a slapstick riot, apparently.
Yeah, totally. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate having you all on the stream. Have a good one. Until next time, watch more anime.